My name is Terry Briscoe, and I'm the chair, and for the vice chair. And some of our members are on Zoom tonight. If you are on Zoom, please make sure you have your name on the Zoom so. So, we're into groups. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I have one amendment. I'm going to move the budget session, the budget workshop in section 5 up to the top of the agenda right now, with public comment available after. Because we think that perhaps some questions might get answered during the presentation and others want to start with the budget presentation that the audio is not working.
The audio is definitely not working.
Yes, is there a motion to change the agenda? Bob?
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Maybe everybody on Zoom is abstaining.
I mean, should we, yeah, people on Zoom couldn't have voted or abstained. Should we avoid the to put on? I think maybe we should move these our closer and have one with Rena, and if it's possible, Rena, to move that closer.
So they have to be 6 feet apart, or else they won't talk to each other. And I am connected to this one, so I have to be where it goes.
Do you want to come closer?
Would the board like me to come closer? I tried changing the speaker. Can anybody on Zoom hear us now?
Yeah, the audio is a lot better now, Rena.
Yeah.
I can't hear it.
It should be coming through the TV.
Oh, Sheena's saying it's better.
Be working.
When Rena talks, and she's right there. Oh, Colleen, Rena, they're picking you up. Are you guys hearing me? Okay, honestly. Yes, okay, now they're hearing us. Thank you, Rena.
Donna, can you speak so we can hear you?
I mean, I'd rather not because it looks like I'm on the big screen, but can you hear me?
We don't hear you.
Turn your speaker on down on the bottom.
No, our speaker's on. It's
Supposed to come through the TV.
No.
I see him
Next 6.
At the bottom near the timestamp,
This?
the
No.
bottom right, on
Bottom
the whole
right.
screen by the timestamp, it says.
Oh, that's my computer. My computer's
Yeah, but
muted.
that's- I think that'll. I think that has to be open hand, isn't it?
Anna, say something.
I don't want to be on the big screen.
Somebody's texting me, is it right? All right, try again, Anna.
I mean, I want someone else to speak up so that I'm not on the big screen.
All right, for those who couldn't hear us and we couldn't hear you, I'll say again that if you're on Zoom, you need to have your name showing. And for the board members who couldn't hear, we took a motion to change the agenda to put the budget workshop up first, followed by public comment. If the board members could indicate their agreement to that, that would be helpful. We've already voted here. Okay, Adam said, okay. All right, so the ayes have it. All right, so.
Yeah, when we start the budget workshop, there'll be 2 parts. I think most people here this evening are probably concerned about recent cuts to the district budget that have been discussed on the listserv. There's a presentation that's been out there. We'll have Sherry Souza, our superintendent, walk us through that presentation to give everybody a sense of what the board has contemplated. And just for background, we'll get into more of the, kind of how we arrived at all of that. But Just for historical context, each year the state comes out with something called the yield bill that establishes the the last piece of the tax rates. And they typically just give us a number to kind of tell us what, enable us to project the tax rates. Last year, they reinstituted something called the excess spend threshold or penalty phase. And they, with that calculation, and we'll get into this in the kind of the second half of the presentation that I'll provide. They essentially said, if you're more than 118% over the statewide average, then you'll be subject to penalty phase, and every dollar as a school district that you spend over that will be double counted against you for purposes of establishing taxes. For districts, you already saw last year, a third of Vermont school districts were unable to pass their budgets the first time. A district that gets into penalty phase would have very little chance of passing a budget in that climate. So when we ran the numbers, we essentially, on about a $30 million budget, had the task of taking $2.5 million out of last year's budget, right, in order to get to a number that we could have a budget that we could pass. Sherry is going to talk about the process that the board went through to arrive at that number. And then hopefully, after that, if people have comments they'd like to make, maybe some of that will be answered. But the second half of the budget presentation, I'm going to give everybody a walkthrough of how Vermont education taxes work. It's kind of become a little bit of an annual tradition. And then we'll get an early first look at the tax rates down to the town level based on the proposed budget numbers that we've developed so far.
Great.
So, Sherry?
Thank you. So Raina's going to be my eyes and ears. My internet is not working. So 2 weeks ago, the principals presented to all the faculty and staff, and Jim and I presented to the central office team, as well as the board, the process that we came through working with the finance committee, with Carrie and Ben, to establish where we would make the $2.5 million worth of cuts necessary to stay below the threshold. So this is our budget proposal that we brought to the finance committee 2 weeks ago. Okay. Can we turn the screen so that?
That's good.
I can't get out of, my screen is locked. I can't get out of this.
Here we go. So the presentation includes the process that went through to create the proposed budget, the factors we considered when we were making that decision, what was the process of.
Ideally, put away over here.
One man band over there, right?
Trying.
Thank you, Raina.
All right. Am I?
Back it up just a little bit, just so folks.
Sure.
Oh, I thought you meant the slideshow. You can go a little bit. I'm just attached.
Thank you. Did that help? So in the presentation, we included the preparation went through to
I
create.
can interrupt. We're not seeing the slides online.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, hi, Sherry, hi, Raina. We can't see the screen sharing on the Zoom.
Again.
There we go. Thank you.
Takes a team. So we also included the factors we used to consider the decisions we were making. Do you think we can put it in full presentation later?
I can try, but.
There we go. We also included the presentation, what were the budget reductions for each of the schools? What are the next steps we have to take? And we asked questions, or each of the faculty members were able to ask questions. So this process began on July 19th. Actually, for Jim and I, it began in June when we first saw HB 887 and the impact of that. We met with the leadership team mid-July, talked about the impact, the amount of the cut that we would need to make, 2.5 million. We, based on those conversations, we decided to send a letter out to the faculty and staff so they were aware. We didn't want faculty and staff to return without knowing that we were going to have to make significant cuts to address the spending threshold. Mid-August, the principals came back with their first recommendations about reductions and rationales. And we really, what it was important about the process is that the principals worked together to make these decisions. Each principal knew their budget extremely well, but the impact of everyone's budget, because faculty of share, staff are shared, this really needed to be a decision made with all principals at the table. So their first round of thoughts about what reductions could be made this on August 14th. Mid-September, we began working with the board leadership. We had multiple meetings with Carrie and Ben, principals representing their thoughts about where reductions could be made and the considerations they had. The principals offered a number of different models. Finance committee considered those and made asks for one of those with some modifications to one of the models, as well as the board decided to offer a early retirement or early leave for teachers, as well as greater incentive around the insurance plan. So then in October and November, myself and Jim then presented the recommendations to the finance committee. We had not only finance members of the board there, but other committee board members to continue the dialogue about how we got to the number we got to the reductions. So this has been a 6-month process with lots of input at the board level, lots of input between administration and principals.
Doesn't like full screen mode.
So thank you. So,
I don't know what I did.
so the factors we were considered, principals as well as the central office team considered were first impact on students, looking at where the greatest impact was in terms of numbers of classes and numbers of students and where that played out in each of the buildings. We also looked at our teaching and learning policy, portrait of graduate and strategic plan. We really, was important to us that we spread the reductions across all the schools, programs, and central office. And you see in the pie chart to come how that was accomplished. We looked at class and course enrollment numbers at the elementary, pre-K, high school to make sure, again, that around student impact. And what was really important is that these reductions are sustainable, that it isn't 1 year cutting something and then we're going to need that item next year. It had to be something that we could, year to year, we have no idea what's going to happen in Montpelier next year. We have no idea what, we have lots of conversations, a lot of press about fixing education funding in Vermont. But it was really important to the reductions we made recommendations on or ones that were sustainable. The other part is we do have a collective bargaining agreement both for our faculty and support staff. So there are some things that we can cut and there are other things that we cannot cut because it is part of that negotiated contract. It is also important to know that when positions are reduced, it really is based on seniority and licensure. Every teacher is licensed in certain areas. This is not true for special education teachers as there have specific specialties that have to be considered as well. So really, and as we made these decisions, they really were a reference to the contract that's been negotiated under the our faculty and staff. The Board of Finance Committee responded to the proposal. They offered the early release or buyout option for all faculty and staff with 5 years in the district. And they also increased the incentive for insurance opt-out. They supported one of the 3 models that were offered with modifications. So there was a real dialogue in terms of how we came to these reductions. We were able, Jim was able to find a way to restructure our debt, which addressed 1.1 million of the $2.5 million cut. I can only imagine what we would be putting on the table today if Jim hadn't figured out how to address that debt in a way that didn't impact the threshold. And the finance committee was really appreciative for the difficult decisions that were made and the thoughtfulness of the process. We have dedicated 6 months of time to this conversation, and they were really appreciative. And they also recognized the depth of collaboration between the principals and directors. I think of my years here, I don't think the principals are better versed in everyone else's budgets, no matter what school you're in or what program you are. The depth of their analysis of where we are was really impressive. And so these were the proposed budget reductions. As you can see from this pie chart, this is how reductions were spread out. The central office, so is 311,944. The high school, 332,990. The elementary schools, 730,764. And the debt reallocation or debt refinance was 1.051. 5675. So as you can see, we really worked hard to ensure that the impact of the reductions were felt in every building, in every program. So at the central office level, we had one full-time accounts payable position. It was open last spring. When Jim and I saw the yield bill come through, we realized that we could not refill that position. So the responsibilities of that person have been spread out through the office. We've had a half-time grant writer. That position will end as of July 1. All grants will be written within district. Our buildings and grounds budget was reduced by $100,000. And then other district-wide professional development resources were to achieve that over 300,000. At Barnard, a half-time classroom teacher, reducing the number of classrooms to 4 total based on the projected enrollment for FY26, a full-time paraeducator, which is currently unfilled, and then program cost reductions such as field trip, transportation, equipment, furniture, and music supplies. At Killington Elementary, 1 full-time classroom teacher, 1 full-time paraeducator, and program cost reductions. In Reading, program cost reductions. At Prosper Valley, program cost reductions. Prosper is our elementary school that is increasing in size the greatest next year, and so really did not have the capacity to reduce any of the faculty or staff. At Woodstock Elementary, half of an interventionist moves to Prosper Valley. That's moving a grant-funded position, a locally funded position into a grant-funded position, so allows us to realize some costs. And then 1 full-time general ed paraeducator currently unfilled. Program cost reductions such as field trip funds reduced, literacy supplies reduced. Elementary unified arts cuts. 0.2 of a district music teacher district-wide, 0.4 of an art teacher district-wide, 1 full-time STEM teacher district-wide, and 1.6 Spanish teacher. Currently, 0.6 position is open.
Do you want the link?
Yes. At the middle school, high school, half of a math teacher, half of a high school science teacher. This makes the math, science, and social study having the same number of teaching positions. Currently, our social studies positions are 4.5 or 5.5. And so this would be the same for math and science. So that's balanced. English, we could not reduce because every year students are required for graduation English. Half of a French teacher, 1 Latin teacher, and a 0.17 of a library paraeducator. So our next steps. So tonight is December 2nd. We present, the Finance Committee will present the proposed budget, including other parts that we haven't seen, impact of the yield letter, as well as revenues. December 16th, the hope is that the board can either vote. Well, their options are either to vote on the proposed budget or to ask for further or different reductions. January 6th is the last opportunity that the board would have to vote on a number to submit to our towns in order to get the information out to individual towns to be on budget for voting. And then March 4th is when the communities will see that budget. So that's the presentation.
Thank you, Sherry.
Well,
And from here, we'll go to the second half of the presentation, if I can get my sharing to work. And a couple of, let me just get this going first. I can go back and forth. Okay, so a couple of things. This is a presentation that, for those who've been around the board for any amount of time, the formulas that I'll walk through will look a little bit familiar. They change every year. It's always a shell game with the state. There's something that makes our incredibly complex education funding formula different from one year to the next. And I'll do my best to try to break that down so that everybody can kind of understand how tax rates get calculated. And then the second thing is that I'm going to present information this evening. This is unusual that by December, we'd be able to project taxes down to the town level, but we've actually gotten some information today at 3:00 p.m. from the state that I've incorporated to the best of my ability into the presentation. Jim and I worked this afternoon on it, but they're very preliminary numbers. So I'll go ahead and not to bury the lead. As a result of all of these cuts that Sherry's just talked about, tax rates are projected to go down in every town in the district, which is, would be good news, right? If it didn't come at a cost to some of the education opportunities. But it's also not anything that I would want anyone to, go out and make any financial decisions based on these projections, because these numbers are subject to change, right? Both as a result of new information coming out from the state and the system changing. When the legislature meets in January, there could be changes to, the formulas, just as there were changes at the end of the session last year. So take all this with a grain of salt. It's kind of this is based on the best information that we have right now. And this is a process that the board will go through between now and the beginning of February as more information is released to us from the state and the pictures become more clear. So what we'll walk through tonight is just how Vermont education funding works, and then talk about the things that we keep an eye on. I call them budget drivers, kind of the big rocks that affect people's tax rates. We'll talk about the FY25 yield bill that we just mentioned, and in particular what that did to from FY25 to FY26, what we're the decisions that we needed to make, what our priorities are for this year. They're not many. We've already just talked about them, but then also we'll get into I have here equalized tax rate projection. It's actually going to go down to the town level, like I said, for kind of an early preview this year. So too long, didn't read it version. I'll just give you the quick takeaways. The tax commissioner's December 1 letter that came out at 3:00 today, and last year, people may recall who follow Vermont Ed Finance, there was kind of a sounding of an alarm where the tax commissioner said, again, this is last year, tax rates across the state are going to go up 18.5%, and this is unsustainable. You school districts need to cut your budgets. This year, the projection that's come out is 5.9% statewide. So while not, that's still a healthy increase, but it's about a third of what was projected last year at this time. That's statewide, not for our district. We'll get into some district specific numbers. So kind of state of the state is very different from where we were this time last year. As we've just talked about, our district's required to make significant budget cuts, and that's due to the reintroduction of that excess spend threshold we talked about. And then as a result, we're going to see lower tax impacts than that statewide average, but we're not going to know for sure what those tax rates will be until we have the final student counts from the state and also those final CLA numbers. Right now, we're just going off of projections. So here's a walkthrough. This is where taxes come from the state. Generally, the state education fund is about $2 billion, a little more than that now. The slide's a little bit dated, but these are the sources. By far, the greatest source of education funding comes from non-homestead property taxes. That's second homeowners and businesses across the state. Then there's kind of about an equal amount that comes from homestead property taxes. That's people who live in the state full time. Or from sales and use taxes, those are about a quarter. And then there's a number of smaller taxes that pay into the education fund, right? But just so everyone understands, what the school district does only impacts the homestead property tax rate. The non-homestead property tax rate is set statewide and is not impacted by decisions at the local level. So here are the pieces of how we get to the tax rate, and I'll go over some of the changes that have been introduced this year. So we start with how much money the school district is looking to spend in total. That's really your budget. And then you take out local revenues. Local revenues are things like tuition dollars that we might get from students who aren't living in the member towns of our district. They may have school choice. Take apartment kids, for instance. They pay tuition to come to our high school. Other local revenues might be grant funding. Anything that's not collected from the taxpayer is considered local revenue. So what you're left with is education spending. Then you take that number, education spending, and you divide it by essentially what's enrollment. That pile of words there at the bottom left of the slide is long-term weighted average daily membership. It's a formula. You basically take the number of kids you have, and that gets run through some sausage making at the state. Different students are weighted differently, but that LTW ADM is essentially your head count, right? And from that, you get your per pupil spend. This year, for the first time since the start of the pandemic, and unbeknownst to the school board when we were making our budget last year, we're subject to excess spend threshold again. That was supposed to be relaxed through FY29, but surprise, surprise, the legislature brought it back, and now we're subject to some severe limitations. So you take that per pupil spend and you divide it by the number that came out today, which is the property yield. There's a new adjustment. Here's the wrinkle, the shell game for this year. They've come up with something called the statewide adjustment. It tweaks two numbers, and that's the property yield and the CLA, which we'll see on the next slide, by just a factor. And it's confusing, and I really don't know why the state did it this way, but it affects the numbers that we have to work with. And we've been able to kind of run through our processes and derive the numbers that we're going to share with you this evening. But when you get there, by dividing that per pupil spend by the yield is the equalized tax rate. And by equalized, that means it's the same for every town in the school district, right? And then from there, real estate activity in the town called the common level of appraisal gets you to the town tax rate. Essentially, the state says everybody has to pay taxes based on the fair market value of their houses, but some towns appraise different times than others. And so in order to level that playing field, they do a study that's a rolling 2-year study of real estate sales in a town. And they say, here's the adjustment factor based on kind of what the going price of houses is in that town. It's a lot of complexity, but it's designed to get to a degree of fairness in setting tax rates. So the things that we look at from the finance committee and at the board level, kind of keep our eye on, kind of those big rocks I talked about. Each year, there's an audit that gets done that says, okay, you set a budget, you went to the taxpayers, you got approval. How close did you come to it? Did you overspend your budget? Did you underspend it? If you underspend it, you get a surplus, and that money becomes available to reduce the amount of money that you need to collect from taxpayers in the following year. If you overspend it, then you've got a deficit. We've run the numbers on FY24. These things happen in a year in advance, a year in arrears. And it looks like we can expect a small surplus, but nothing that's really going to move the needle. Good news is it's not something that's going to hurt us. The LTW ADM, that's the enrollment, is down a little bit this year. Those numbers kind of go up and down based on how many students you've got. We're fairly flat on enrollment. I think we're within about 5 students of where we were this time last year. We'll probably see later in the presentation, but based on those weightings, that number can fluctuate a little bit. The property yield, this is the other thing. It's going to be adjusted by that change that happened to the system this year. It's down this year, and this is strange because it typically goes up each year. But when you run it through the formulas that they've put out, it actually gives us a number that would look like it's higher, right? So that's very confusing, and I apologize for it, but that's the number that we were given today with the tax commissioner's letter. Health insurance is a number that we're just given each year, the cost of providing insurance for our faculty and staff. That's an 11.9% increase this year. That's after a 16.4% increase last year. That's a number that's just been a runaway problem. And it's something that if we're going to stay beneath the threshold, it counts against us, right? So this is roughly about 300K that we had to find in the budget in order to stay beneath the threshold while still providing insurance for our people, right? The yield bill, so this is what we talked about a couple times already, that 2.5 million reduction. That's a significant, item that we've been working on. And then the CLA, what we're seeing from the projections that have just come out today is that those CLA numbers look like they've slowed. Those increases to property value at the town level. Obviously, property goes up over time, but it's not increasing as quickly as it had during the pandemic. And so we're starting to kind of come out of that, really rapid inflation that's impacting tax rates and how much people have to pay in taxes so much. So that's relatively good news. The yield bill, not to go too far into the weeds on this, but essentially re-implemented the excess spending threshold like we talked about, and it set that threshold at 118% of the statewide average per pupil spending. So if you're a school district that's over that, you have to get under it, or else you have to pay double taxes. And for us, that translated to the need to cut $2.5 million. The other thing, and this goes to the magic that Jim Fenn was able to work on restructuring our debt, and that is when the state calculates that excess spend, like how far are you over that number? There's always been exemptions to that. And one of the exemptions that's always existed has been approved school construction. It was a big deal for us last year in February when the state approved our school project, because that would mean that if we were able to get it approved by voters, that the money that we spend on that new school would not put us into penalty phase. Well, the state did away with all exemptions except for, and it looks like the intent was to kind of preserve that. For instance, Burlington passed a bond for their school, but it was its principal and interest payments for voter approved bonds are the only exemption, right? So it became more general. Well, the good news was that we actually went to the voters to get debt approved to the tune of about $5 million 2 years ago. We still had about $4 million of that, about $1 million a year on the books. And we were able to restructure that as a bond to fit within the statutory exemption, which took us from that $2.5 million number that we had to get down to more like 1.5. A big savings just by being able to take advantage of a change in the law. So the priorities that we had this year were laser focused on staying out of penalty phase. So that's that $2.5 million, and the health insurance increase. We were looking at, in addition, having to come up with another 300K on top of that. So not ultra pleasant work. Priorities, in past years we've done things like added a librarian based on recommendations of the staff, or we've been able to go for certain improvements at the school level that really needed to be done. Those aren't the conversations that we're having as a board these days. It's all about cuts. It's not pleasant, but tough decisions, and we're doing work. So let's talk about those tax rates. Again, this is an equalizer. This is going to go down to the town level. And apologies, didn't have time between 3 o'clock and now to get all this completed. But this is an historical view of various kind of pieces of those formulas that I showed you earlier, right? Like, what's your expenditure budget? Ed spending is the one that you can see goes from FY21. How much money did we need to raise from taxpayers in order to run the schools in our district? It went from about 17 million, 5 years ago, up to about 25 million today, right? And that's inflation, priorities, various, consolidation, having, Barnard come into the school district, obviously it increased our Plymouth, as a result of Act 46 is going to result in increases in that time frame. Equalized pupils, you can see that, we did see during the pandemic an increase in students. And then when they added the formulas, that kind of changed things a little bit. The per pupil spend numbers, when the formula changes, it's tough to kind of, keep your eye on that ball. But the yield numbers, as you can see in FY21, this is that factor that we got today. Those have gone up each year, FY21, 22, 23. You're expected to get a little bit more. That's really to account for inflation. So things just get more expensive. That number goes up. So it was strange to see it go down this year, but it was explained by that adjustment factor. And then you see this, the equalized tax rate on the bottom row. we were looking at before you apply adjustments for real estate activity back in FY 21, the town or the tax rate at the district level was $1.85. Of course, that's on very different property values over the last 5 years. And then you see that go down for a couple of years and then come back up to where we are. This $1.87 number is only half the picture. This one that you see for FY 26 that's projected, because that adjustment factor is hitting the CLA as well. And so to complete the picture, let's go back a year and you can see what tax rates did last year. Now, this is a little bit of a deceptive number because 4 of the 7 towns of our school district did reappraisals either 2 years ago or last year. You had Pomfret doing a reappraisal 2 years ago, and then you had Barnard, Bridgewater, and Reading did reappraisals this year. So while it looks like those tax rates came down last year, I think anybody who got a tax bill saw their home value go up so much that the actual amount of money that people paid was significantly more. But you can see the towns that didn't do reappraisals got hit really hard last year, and this has been all over the papers. Everybody knows this. Killington's right around 30%, Plymouth around 36%. Same thing, Woodstock around 30%. That's a huge and unsustainable increase. The projected good news, and again, take this all with a grain of salt, is that based on the early numbers from the state, that adjustment factor is about 28%. And when you combine that with it's really about $1.5 million worth of budget cuts that we're looking at making with the debt restructuring taking out $1 million. These are the projected tax rates for towns. This early first look, everybody's looking at seeing somewhere between, Plymouth is seeing their CLA continue to raise for some reason. They seem to be a little delayed. So they're still be looking at an increase, but only about 2.6%. And then on the other end of the range, you're looking at some of the towns that did reappraisals continuing to see significant reductions to their tax rates, like Reading, 17% reduction, Barnard 15% reduction, but Killington 7%, Woodstock around 10% with the reduction. So where that leaves us, and I'll wrap it up here, but it's as a board, we're looking at this information that's just come out from the state, and every year that I've been on the board, this is my 6th year or so, we try to take a temperature of our taxpayers and we say, okay, what's anybody's tolerance for increases to taxes? After the year that we saw last year, I think it's fair to say none, right? Nobody wants to see their taxes go up any more than they can. If we want to pass a budget, it's very important to stay out of penalty phase. So while we as a board might be tempted to say, oh, wait a minute, we've got a little bit of extra wiggle room here with everybody's tax rates, going down. I don't know. I mean, personally, my opinion on this stuff is you don't want to play with that kind of fire with your voters. So the steps that we've taken to stay out of penalty phase are important. They've been really well considered. We as a board will continue to consider everything that anyone's got to say. We'll open it up for public comment here in a moment, and we'll continue to make our decisions to get to a number that our voters can get behind.
Thank you, Ben. Does the board have any questions for Sherry or Ben? Sam?
Sandy Natale, Woodstock. I watched this presentation of yours now a few times, Ben, and I was thinking of things that didn't make sense to me when I first watched it, that I think were, or the whole presentation, I think, just for clarification. Jim, I think it's a lot of people might not understand how much of the budget is contractual obligations that we as a board cannot cut and make any, like, as a rough number. It's a significant amount, right?
Between wages and benefits.
Yeah.
It's around 78 to 80%.
So 80% of the budget is contractual obligations that we as a board cannot touch at all. So I just,
Not without reducing.
yeah, so I think that that's an important point to bring up. Sherry, you mentioned at the last meeting how much arts are offered in other schools within the states compared to us. What was that again?
So I looked at the top elementary school, it says reported by the state, looking at the number of unified arts.
Yeah,
Quite often, and that was what told to us when we were assessed by New Solutions K-12. We have a high number of UA. And then looking at not just what we offer, I think there's only one other district close by that offers the same number of unified arts. The remainder either has less or has it less often and to create lesser levels. And so I can share that with you. But looking at the elementary schools and those ranked top 5 in the state, we do offer more unified arts than most elementary schools.
and that's still with these proposed, productions?
In terms of the number of things we offer, yes.
Okay,
The frequency is more in line now with other elementary schools based on those comparisons.
okay. I wrote all of them down because I wanted to make sure. One of the other things that's been brought to me, throughout, you know, once we first started posting on listservs this budget is, you know, how could we maybe make cuts to administration? And I do think that's not actually in this presentation, but should be brought up that I think in past years, because I've been on the board for a few years now, there have been more cuts in administration over the last 2 or 3 years that maybe people haven't, like, wouldn't realize because it's not in this presentation. And but we made at least like 2 or 3 positions over the last few years of cuts in administration.
Well, we added an assistant principal at Woodstock Elementary as a result of
Yes, yeah,
community interest and because of the kinds of situations that were occurring at Woodstock Elementary. We've added social emotional approaches again because of the kinds of behavior post-COVID that we were experiencing.
Yeah.
So we now have full-time principals in every elementary school and 1 assistant principal at Woodstock Elementary. And at the high school, we have 1 principal and 1 assistant principal.
and that was really from like the result of many complaints, many issues, many social emotional problems that we were coming from the public, coming from that we needed, that these schools needed this administration. Yeah. And then I think the other thing that has also been brought to me by a few people is just the healthcare and early retirement. People feeling that they were pushed out or anything like that. I mean, this was all a voluntary, we gave these people this option. This was something that if they chose to take it, you know, it was really there.
Most schools, most large companies give an incentive that if you choose to use your partner's insurance, there's a cash out for that. Previously it was $3,000 and we really felt that, or $2,000. And that was really not an incentive for an individual to pursue their partner's healthcare insurance. So that was sent out to all faculty and staff, and some people have taken advantage of it.
Almost a win-win. They still have healthcare through their partner.
Right.
And the district saves money.
Right.
And they get a little extra bonus.
Just so you know, next year, the family plan will cost the district before co-pays by the employees $40,897 for
Boy.
the employee that's on the campus.
Okay, thanks. I'll open the floor to anyone else who has any questions. Thank you, Sherry.
Sorry, we're a few minutes late coaching your practice. Did we change the order of the agenda and did we just skip right ahead to 5D?
We did.
And are we going to have a chance as a board to continue to discuss 5D after the public comment? Or are we going to sort of finish board discussion and then go to public comment?
I think if questions come up that the board would like to bring forward after the public comment, that would be fine.
So we'll go back to 5D. We won't be done with it once we go to public comment.
Anyone on Zoom, any board members on Zoom have questions? All right, any other board members? All right, at this time then, we'll move to public comment. I would ask that you, if you're here in the room, would you please say your name and count? And if you could try not to repeat other people's comments, but it's fine to say I agree completely with this person's comments or what happened, just because there are a lot of people. And we've already had many public comments on our budget. Also, it will be a strict 2-minute time tonight. John here in the center is going to be timing. He'll give you a 15-second warning, and then it's going to be a hard stop. Thank you. So what I'll try to do is take a couple comments from the room, and then if there's a couple comments from Zoom, Brenda's going to have to help me see them because that's a little far for me. We'll start with that. So is there somebody who would like to speak? Raise your hand. Yes.
I'm Finn Farrell. I'm a student at the Woodstock Union High School here. And on behalf of the Woodstock's QSA, I would like to express dissatisfaction with the cuts leading to the removal of the Latin program and Magistra Allen's position. We as a group have found a lot of solace and comfort within Magistra being a teacher. And the subject matter of the course is also very useful in our understanding of the world and how it engages with us as people. Latin as a language course is more than a language. It goes into ethics, philosophy, economy, history, social rights, social activism. We live in a world that is foundationally built off of Roman culture and Roman beliefs, a lot of which are still used in our own legal and political systems today. Understanding that budget cuts are necessary, we don't think this is the right place to have them be. For every dollar that you put into having Magistra, she puts out $10 worth of value. She's a great teacher, a great person, a great friend to students, and we are deeply disheartened by her being disregarded. Thank you.
Thank you. One more person. Yes, in the back.
Hi, Elizabeth Reeves with Scott. It goes without saying that I have a great amount of appreciation and gratitude for the hard work and service of our board. So I really thank you for this work. I'm here today because we could tell from this presentation that there is an opportunity on December 16th for the board to reject this budget option and to ask for additional solutions. And I'm here in particular to ask you to reject the cuts to the Unified Arts and STEM program. What was missing from this presentation, and Sam tried to get at that with your questions, I think we do not see any freezes to administration, the salaries or administrative cuts. That's always one of the first options that we have when we're looking for budget cuts in any organization. We haven't seen any consideration or evidence on why the one-time COVID ESSER funding for those coordinator positions within our school have not been considered for cuts. And we consolidated this district in order to create efficiency at the administration level. And as was pointed out earlier, we have principals in all of our schools, including schools with only 35. So we have other solutions available to find money and to maintain our Unified Arts program at its current level. The second thing that was missing from this presentation in the timeline around how the budget proposal was arrived at was there was no community voice or survey of community, faculty, staff prioritization of what they wanted to be part of this budget process. So South Burlington going through a similar process. The first thing they did was send out a survey to their community. We saw that community highlight that they wanted to prioritize administrative cuts, central office cuts, as well as
15 seconds.
Their curriculum. And we came to this board last May before there were budget cuts and asked to be part of the process where we knew they were already considering Unified Arts cuts. That was not acceptable then. It's not acceptable now. And we know that the board has ample time to come back with new options and has other solutions that haven't been accepted. I'd like to hand it over to Dylan.
My name is Dylan Benros. I'm the parent of 2 children in the district that hopefully have a lot of years ahead of them here. I'm an engineer by training, and I use a technique called value stream mapping quite a bit. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that to kind of highlight the holes in some of the communication that a lot of us have observed. So value stream mapping is a process that kind of visualizes and measures all of the costs and resources involved in running an organization, and then identifying those which do not directly add value to the customer. And if we put the students at the center of this concept, I think this kind of highlights that cuts to educational programs and staff that the students interact with on a daily basis should be the last resort, because these are the people and programs that are executing the goals, strategies, and objectives that are set out by the district. And even today, I did not see a quantitative measurement of the change in per pupil spending that excluded the central office. Students were basically mentioned as a buzzword in a bullet point in one of the early slides. Some activities that are designated as non-value added, they are in fact essential, but these are also the categories that need to be minimized or eliminated, right off the bat. So the fact that not only are there no cuts or freezes, but instead what appear to be raises for administrative and leadership on the proposed fiscal year budget spreadsheet kind of demonstrates without question that all alternatives were not exhausted before landing on this proposal. In agreeing with Elizabeth, there is time to revisit this kind of essentially, backward approach to identifying opportunities for cuts, to produce a proposal that is student-centered and can make the district operate more efficiently.
15 seconds.
This could be through other funding sources, restructuring, consolidation, administrative reductions, or other changes. And going forward, I second that the community is demanding more transparency and a voice in this process. So I'm asking the board to reject this proposal. Thank you.
No, sorry, I already said it was going to be 2-2. But I don't think I see anyone on Zoom, so yes, next meeting.
I'm Mike Woodstock. I have 2 kids at West.
Last name, Mike?
Calabrese. Yeah, the West website says the slogan is empowered, compassionate learners. And I'm here to speak about unified hearts. I'm a musician myself. I think one way we're to stick to the slogan. We want to empower kids. We open them up, we expose them, give them a diverse set of skills to choose from when they learn. If we want to be compassionate to our kids, and have them be compassionate, especially considering all the mental health concerns we have these days, I think it's important that kids have physical outlets. I think it's important that they have artistic, expressive outlets. These are essential components to being a human being that shouldn't be reduced or developed. And I don't think it stops there. I think any adult realizes this at the end of a long day. You don't go home and relax with word problems. You turn on Netflix or take a pottery class. And so I also, going off of what my 2 friends also says, I hope you reject this and think about it some more, have some community input. And my career is based in the arts, so I'm of course biased, but it shouldn't stop anyone else realizing how it is. And I'd like to hand it off to Pete. Another artist.
You have
somebody, we have 2 people
Yeah.
on Zoom, so I'm going to go with them first. Who's the first one, Raina?
Annie.
Annie?
Hello, my name is Annie Hawes from Pomfret. I'm a Woodstock alum. I took Latin with Magister Allen the 2 years that I was at Woodstock. When I was a junior at Woodstock, I had just moved to a new state, a new school. I had just lost my grandfather and I was really, really struggling with my mental health. And Latin, which was a completely new subject for me, became immediately my refuge and a really significant reason why I felt at home at Woodstock. Magistra is extremely compassionate and just shows this love for her students and has a really uniquely engaging approach to teaching Latin through heavily social, physical, and creative outlets alongside just academic. And I know in the presentations, you all mentioned a lot of spending related to social emotional learning and student well-being. And I would like to argue that the Woodstock Latin department and Magister Allen's position is actually crucial to the mental well-being of a really legitimate segment of Woodstock student population, especially speaking as a former member of the Woodstock QSA, the queer students to whom she's a particular ally. So I just wanted to put in a word for Magistra. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Holly?
Holly?
Hi, good evening. Holly Gaspar, Woodstock, parent of a fifth grader. I want to thank all the board members for all your work in supporting our school community. You're the voices for our children, our families, and our community together. We have generated some questions that many of us have and would urge you to continue to explore the answers as you continue to plan for today, tomorrow, and the future of our district. Public education is a right in our community, and you are holding a seat of power to improve the quality of that education and how it shapes young minds and their future. So I have a few questions that I just ask you to think about as you're making decisions moving forward. When you think about our district's current programming and services, what are you most proud of, and how can we preserve those strengths amid budget cuts? How does this align with your experience as a child? How do the proposed cuts align or misalign with our mission and vision and values and our priority areas? Have there been approaches to include innovative funding strategies and partnerships that could help sustain some of these critical and crucial programs? How have teachers and staff been consulted as part of the critical decision-making? I urge you to look for testimonials, have those conversations directly. How are the proposed cuts likely to affect students with the greatest needs? I think we're hearing about some of that this evening, such as our youngest students who are at the most rapid brain development rate, those with specific abilities, behavioral health needs, physical and emotional needs, or those from low-income households. Do these proposed cuts feel equitable across those very vulnerable populations? Based on how we understand the differences in development and learning styles, is eliminating unified arts making it equitable for all students to succeed in our schools? Are there non-programmatic areas where savings could be found to minimize the impacts on student services across the board, such as administrative raises, travel funds, conferences that are taking away from our district student programs and services? Given the current workforce and housing crises in our regions, that the proposed cuts would not deepen these issues to increase the teacher workload, the current burnout, and the morale, ultimately impacting public education and that students have available. What? Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Is there anybody else? Yes.
Hi, Pete Landis, current resident of Woodstock, and I actually grew up in Heartland. So I was a student that went here with school choice. My mother, Beth Clausen Landis, was the elementary school art teacher at Woodstock for a number of years. My wife, Megan, also grew up in Woodstock, and we're all in the arts. I'm an architect, my wife's an interior designer. My mother was an art therapist before she was the art teacher. And I think the cuts to unified arts is just ignoring a large segment of professional life that has to deal with the arts. And there's so many different types of jobs that are related to the arts, and also different ways of learning. All the tech companies right now are all trying to hire people with neurodivergent and autism, and because they see that different ways of thinking and learning are a huge asset. So cutting unified arts is just a horrible decision. I think there should be a survey to the community and find out what people value and put that into your budget proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jess Kirby. I live in Woodstock. I have one kid in pre-K. Quickly, just have to say, I'm so impressed by all the students here. And I'm so proud of you guys, like, round of applause. This is an opportunity for the district to reassess budget priorities in a way that minimizes the impact on students, teachers, and the community. As we've heard tonight, unified arts play a critical role in fostering creativity, emotional well-being, and overall academic success. These programs are not extras. They are essential to a well-rounded education. The Mountain View strategic plan states that it was designed to positively position students to be future ready and to provide an example for other rural communities of how strong investments in schools result in local growth and global connectedness. Cutting these programs is in direct opposition to this. Instead of reducing access to these programs, the district and board should prioritize budget adjustments that protect the core educational experience. Cuts should focus on areas that the least direct effect on students and teachers. Other districts in our state are already considering this. As Elizabeth mentioned, South Burlington's already doing this with the community service. Administrative leaders have a unique opportunity to lead by example in addressing budget constraints. By accepting reductions in salary, freezing raises, or restructuring administrative expenses, school leaders can demonstrate a commitment to prioritizing student outcomes above all else. Such actions can set a powerful precedent and reinforce trust with the community, showing that every effort is being made to preserve programs that directly impact students.
15 seconds.
Leadership through example underscores the district's dedication to maintaining a robust educational environment. Protecting these programs and ensuring minimal disruptions to the curriculum is a decision that reflects the values of the district and its commitment to their North Star, a portrait of a graduate. Thank you.
We're not in this session. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Heather. I live in South Pomfret. I want to speak to you as a neighbor, a parent of 3 young children, and as a former elementary educator. I'm incredibly concerned about the potential cuts to unified arts. These cuts deprive our children of equitable access to a well-rounded education. Cutting the unified arts in any amount is a heartbreaking service to our children. When I interviewed for my first teaching position, the school board, teachers, and principal asked me a question that I've never forgotten. When your students leave your classroom and go home, what will they bring with them in their hearts, in their hands, and in their minds? Hearts, hands, minds. In that moment, I knew what kind of school I was sitting in. I knew the values of that school board, those teachers, that principal. I knew immediately that this was a place I could see myself teaching and doing important work. That school cared for the whole child. They cared how students felt at school. They cared what students created at school. They cared what students learned at school. My answer was something simple but real. In my students' hearts, I hope they carried home feelings of belonging, work, connection. In their hands, I hoped they would carry beautiful artwork that made them feel joyful and proud. In my students' minds, I hope they carried curiosity and wonder, more questions that sparks after a long day filled with learning, alongside new information and skills. That evening, I jumped up and down when I got the phone call offering me a 3rd grade position at that school. And let me tell you, that school was and is amazing. It is a school that celebrates the whole child, and those children, they shine. They play, they learn, they run outside on nature trails, they cook for their neighbors, they build chicken coops, they have art shows and music concerts. Here's my question for all of you. If I as a parent was interviewing you tonight and figuring out where I wanted to send my child, and I asked you, what do children at your elementary school take home at the end of the day? In their hearts, in their hands, in their minds? What would your answers be? I implore you, do not cut unified arts.
Hello, I'm Kirsten Oates and I'm from Pomfret. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who's doing after Latin. I wasn't going to speak about that tonight, but thank you. I have 2 children who are in Latin. They are dyslexic, and so it's really hard for them to take Spanish and French. And Latin really helps them actually learn and understand the English language. So thank you, full support of that. Also, I don't know what my boys are going to say to when they go to college and they don't have phones. So you're not setting up my to succeed. But that's not what I wanted to say. I would like to remind the board, every single one of you, that you are our voice. You are elected officials. We trust to think critically, ask hard questions, and prioritize the educational needs of our children. We ask you to vote no to the first round of the suggested cuts. Thank you for your time, and sometimes the first option isn't the right option.
Yes. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Prescoya from Catskill, alum of this school, as well as a parent of the district. And I agree that I would love to see these cuts reconsidered and other options explored. And I also just wanted to mention one thing that hasn't been highlighted yet, which is that we talk about 0.5 person, it's still a person, right? And we have some amazing people in this district that young people look up to. And when we try to spread a teacher across a lot of schools and have them do art here and art there and art there, that seems like it's a really tough gig. And as, I don't know, when I lived in New York City, I saw schools try to do that and they did not retain those teachers, right? Like that's a really hard gig for really inexperienced teachers. We want to have high quality, amazing experienced teachers here. So I just thank you. Or anyone else who would like to speak? Okay,
Tim.
Tim. Tim, on Zoom?
Hi, thank you for taking the time, and I appreciate all the thought and effort that's gone into this endeavor. This may not be the most polished statement because a lot of this is new information, just based on what you shared tonight, but I think I echo everyone's sentiment that student-facing cuts should be a non-starter or at least a last resort. I would also like to add that with the crumbling infrastructure we have in our district, as evidenced by all the previous meetings, that building and grounds should be a close second to things we should consider dropping. And perhaps this might be an unpopular sentiment, but looking at consolidating some of those resources in buildings and grounds might be something we should actually consider. I think the move to put 5th and 6th grade in Prosper Valley a couple of years ago was really looked at by many as kind of shocking and a risky endeavor, but it's actually turned out to be quite good. I think there's a lot of opportunity for the satellite elementary schools to perhaps consolidate or to look at maybe having one be a dedicated pre-K program because of the size of pre-K at West and the amount of floor space it takes up, and to give them equal footing in a new facility and maybe in a new light with reinvigorated resources. So again, I just really think Unified Arts is the last place we want to start with cutting, and really kind of as a whole, anything student facing. We really, that's concerning to me as a parent of 2 elementary age children, as well as the child of 2 public educators. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second person?
Tom Ayers.
Yeah, thanks very much. I just I wanted to ask if both of the presentations that have been given tonight in terms of the PowerPoints on the overall budget workshop, and then Ben Ford's presentation following that, are available on the website, or if I could be provided with those by emailing Sherry and Ben following the meeting, because obviously this is a pretty complex issue, and I want to make sure that as the main media person here, we get it right when I report on it this week.
Thank you. Yes.
So will they be available, or should I just reach out to Sherry and Ben following the meeting?
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Yes.
Jonathan Hawes. I live in Pomfret, 2 kids at school now. And my daughter Annie she's at Swarthmore College, but she's the one who spoke about Biggest Drug. We have a lot of great teachers. I mean, I'm in support of so much of what's been said. As any cuts to the Unified Arts, I think are are terrible. But I'm just thinking about people. And I mean, I think many of you can think of a teacher you had, maybe not even in a subject that, you know, you ended up majoring in, but who made a difference in your life. And I know Magistra is one of those teachers. It's not just the cutting of a position. And I'd be opposed to it if I didn't know the teacher, but I do know the teacher. And the value she brings to this community is immeasurable. And I just wanted to give one example. I think it was our second year here after we moved here. Magistra encouraged the kids to write and perform a musical about Remus and Romulus, where Remus and Romulus were T-Rex. They wore the inflatable T-Rex costumes, and I got to come in and play guitar when they were recording parts of it, and it was all in Latin, and there was music, and there was lots of elaborate choreography. I think they took it on the road for one of the educators associations. This is just to say that Latin is not a dead language in I guess just classroom, and just the heart and creativity and spirit that she brings to teaching. It's just you can't put a price on it.
Hello, my name is Laura Silvera. I'm from Woodstock. I'm also the mother of 2 students at West, and I am one of these 0.5 positions that we're all talking about. I'm the art teacher. So my biggest concern about the UA reductions is the reduction in time these students are going to have learning this subject matter. Especially in elementary school, it will be really difficult for them to change gears and learn new routines 3 times a year, further reducing the amount of time we have access to this subject matter. But the trimester plan is problematic for more reasons than that. So art, I'm just going to use myself as an example. Including my salary and the budget for art supplies cost $119 per student for the entire year at West. That means 36 classes a year. It costs the students $3.30 a class. With these proposed cuts, they will no longer get 36 classes, they'll get 24, which means all of these cuts that will reduce all of these students' equity in accessing this material will save $40.48 a year per student for the cost per pupil. And I think that we should talk about maybe how much we could reduce that cost by freezing the administrative phrases, because I know that budget-wise, they're not saving much here.
I am Ms. Claire Bartis. I am the proud art teacher at Killington Elementary in Prosper Valley, and I love my job. I love it so much. I make $25,000 a year, no benefits. If that is something they need to lose, kids leave my class happy, positive, creative. Their minds are twirling. They want this. They need this. This is important. Art is life. We cannot cut this program. We cannot reduce it. This is important. They need it. They need every second of it. It's a happy, happy place, and we create it. We work our hardest, happily, every day going in there, doing our best that we can do. And it would be detrimental to students to take away any of that.
Thank you.
Ben Costello, student here at Woodstock Union High School. As someone who somewhat recently went through the elementary school STEM program, I just have to say I took so much out of it, more than I probably took out of any of the other classes. And that's coming from someone who maybe wasn't the best elementary school student. But really it just was an outlet for all sorts of creativity. And if it's cut, I don't see how the elementary school would be the same. I mean, that was definitely one of the most memorable things about my whole elementary school experience. And no offense to my now science teachers, but some of the things we did there are definitely way cooler than what we did in high school.
Yes.
Luca Morris, I'm a student here. I want to bring it back to the talk of like Istra and the Latin department. I agree fully with everything that's already been said about Latin and about the Gistra, but I'd like to just bring it back to how amazing a teacher she is. And she is such a competent educator and ties in all of her curriculum with looking at the ethics of how we think about the history of the world and who is often overlooked. And she does that in like current times too, by being an amazing ally to all the queer community in our school, and constantly asking what she can do to support us all. And she's just an amazing person who will always talk to you in the hall, in her classroom, at any point in time, always has a smile. So please reconsider cutting her position. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mackenzie Hendricks. I teach at Prosper Valley, and I'm also a parent of a kindergartner at Barnard. Right now, our students are doing a unit on resistors. So we're exploring the civil rights unit, and the kids are learning about what it means to be a resistor. And today they actually came up with their own definition of a resistor. And so their definition focused on the idea of standing up for what's right, whether it's for women's rights, education rights, civil rights, right? So they've seen the importance of standing up, and I felt like I wouldn't be a true teacher if I didn't stand up today. And so we've had a lot of conversations about how representation matters. And so I think a lot of us shared sentiments around the idea that we felt like we weren't represented in these budget conversations. One of the earlier slides talked about how this has been discussed since July, but those conversations have mainly been just with the board and principals. And so I love that the board has a student representative. I would hope that if this is not approved, and I urge you not to approve this budget proposal, that you include community members, you include teachers, you include us in the conversation. We don't want to work against you, we want to work with you. So I just hope that you consider those things, because as a teacher myself, I would not want to see any cuts to the Unified Arts program. And as a mother, I would not want to see that.
Sarah on Zoom. Sarah?
Hi, Sarah Ryder. I am a Pomfret resident and a mother to a third grader and first grader right now. I would ask that the board reject this proposal and return with one that takes into consideration and demonstrates to the community budget cut scenarios that are able to demonstrate the least significant impact on a per student basis. And I would also like to see in the pie chart, I really appreciate all of the work that went into restructuring the debt and the significant impact that has. I'd like to see the cuts that are set forth by percentage as well. I stand in unity with the comments that have been made today by members of the community concerned about the cuts to the Unified Arts. I am a scientist and lawyer by training, and at the same time, arts, as Mike said, arts and movement are essential ways that I am able to be productive and contributing member of the society, and I think this is essential for our children.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, thank you. I'm Quincy Stahl from Pomfret. This is a student at the what we're now calling Prosper Valley, and also here. And I think a lot of it has really already been said. I congratulate everybody who's already spoken, but just to sometimes it's good to have reflect in the minutes the vibe in the room. And I want to thank the board for successfully uniting the community against their proposal. It's not too often we get to see all. The good thing I want to say is that I think it's clear I think everybody in the room already feels the vibe, but you should be, for the minutes to reflect, you should be ashamed of yourselves. And any administrator who's looking at a pay raise, cutting staff, literally and figuratively in pieces, should be ashamed of themselves. And the last thing, I guess, is to be afraid. The person who gave the presentation said you didn't want to play with that kind of fire. You're playing with a different kind of fire. And there's a different kind of penalty phase you might be in if you don't listen. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Four kids are elected to the local school system. I can't believe that people need to defend art and music and literature and it's just unbelievable. The discussion that's being, we're having this discussion. I really, I'm shocked and amazed. I was glad I could be present that this to try to raise a little voice against it. It feels a little bit like because it's Christmas and I was thinking it's Christmas carol. And I was thinking, well, what do the kids really like a lot? They like the drawing, they like music, they like to sing. So let's take that and we'll do it. We'll spread it out so everybody will. We'll list of endless papers. So here's what's going to go here. It's going to go there. Nobody really understands what it likes. So I just let's thinking about the voice of Christmas past. It's possible and it's where I like what Quincy said too. There's a sense of it's a moral issue that shouldn't be denied.
Thank you. Andrew?
Hi, thanks. Andrew Cleland, Woodstock. I have a second grader at Woodstock Elementary. I happen to be on the Parental Advisory Council with Sherry, and I know a lot of careful consideration has been going into these budget cuts, but being on the council, I'd still like to go on record and say that I think cutting unified arts is a really bad idea. My son thoroughly loves unified arts. So that's all. Just wanted to give my opinion.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, actually, I'm going to take all the first timers first. Somebody in the back.
I'm Lila Zeitlin from Woodstock. I wanted to talk specifically about the elementary school. I think children have this sort of wonderful, incredible, effortless genius of using the creative imagination to solve problems. And I think that unified arts have become essential in nurturing that and fostering that. Math is important. Semicolons are all important. But I think in raising happy and healthy people who live good lives, have incredible thoughts, contribute unique things to society, raising good kids, raising happy kids, that comes with the arts. That comes with fostering that inherent genius.
I'm Owen Corsi. I'm a senior at the high school. I'd like to speak as a member of the public. I just think I recognize that these are difficult conversations, and I know that as well as anyone else. But a certain level of decorum and respect, I think, should also be held. These meetings, I think language like ashamed of yourself is unproductive and unnecessarily abrasive. So I'd ask you all to refrain. Just remind yourself that everybody here on this panel is a volunteer or community members. So just keep that in the back of your head. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Ramsey Worrell, Woodstock, North Bridgewater resident now. Having grown up in this area and much looking forward to raising a family here. I waited late in life and have kids, 2 kids now, a third on the way, and growing up in a family that was heavily invested in the arts. it would be an absolute shame to see any kind of budget cuts regarding the arts. Every day when I pick up my kids from school, I ask them every day, can you tell me about your day? Tell me about school. Every day it's art recess, right? Art is what I hear about, not math, not English, not art. The arts play such a valuable role in a youth and kids growing up in this community. And being a new parent in this community, I'm sitting here listening to all this and remembering kind of being here last year with the school, and a lot of the topic in the community with young parents or parents of young kids is what's keeping us here? Taxes, art cuts, the schools fall apart. This is just another thing to send people away. I think we need to be really thoughtful in this decision. The other thing is, excuse me, I am so moved. I don't know who this teacher is. Is that you or somebody else? So incredibly moved. Oh, your students and community fight for this. I think we all need to fight to keep her as opposed to looking for ways to get rid of her. Thank you.
Betsy?
Betsy. Betsy, would you like to speak?
Hi. Sorry, took me a minute there. I've been a teacher here for a very long time, and I love teaching. I love, like every other teacher in our school, in every school, I put my heart and soul into it. I remember clearly, I've been here for over 20 years, and one of the things that we always talked about in our school was putting kids at the center. And I think that's something really important to remember. I really respect all the hard work that everybody's doing for these budget cuts, because I know that's not easy, and I'm not judging anybody. I'm not saying anything about that. What I am saying is we need to just remember that we are student-centered. That's who we're here for. We need to have people there for the kids. Equity was another thing that we always talked about. It's equitable to make sure that all kids learn in different ways, and cutting the arts is one way that's going to take equity away from a lot of kids. So I just think we need to remember that when we're thinking about budget cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. You can have another wait till everyone's wanted to speak. Yes.
And Costello, Woodstock, I just wanted to really rise and just support the arts. And I wanted to just really encourage everyone. And thank you for the board. And I was thinking about Christmas. And when you're pulling the ordinance out, we're not pulling out math tests from the 3rd grade. We're pulling out art projects. Those are the stuff you save, That's what's important. That's the memory.
My name is Caitlin Burris. I'm also a student at Woodstock, and I'm in French. I've never taken Mr. Allen's class, but I remember I have multiple friends who have, and each year they come back telling me about a field trip they went on for some sort of Olympics where they did different acting classes or different competitions. And literally every single person I've talked to, whether they're on the football team, part of QSA, somebody who does theater, whatever group they come from at school, they always talk about how much fun they have on field trips, in normal class, and just talking to my Mr. Allen. So, yes.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leah Gugliota, and I'm a student here, but I live in Pittsfield. So my family gets school choice, and we deliberately chose this district because we came here and we saw the art programs. My little sister is currently at Killington Elementary School, and she has had different music teachers every year because the program just keeps shrinking, and she's so disappointed because so many teachers leave because they can't support themselves off of that consolidated of a position. And I just think that she would be really disappointed to see the arts at her school dwindle any more than they already have.
Thank you. Lauren, on Zoom.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Gagney, also known as Senora, and I'm the Spanish teacher at West. I'm getting a little emotional because my position is also part of the program that I have helped do at West is part of what's talking about being cut. I can only speak for myself, and, you know, I respect I want to send, you know, a thank you to the board. I know that these decisions are very, very difficult. And as someone who has only recently come into the community 2.5 years ago, when there was such a push for an elementary language program, I just needed to say with my whole heart that West and Woodstock has been such an open community to me, so welcoming, and I try my best to teach the kids every day, and I think all of my UA colleagues have done an amazing job and literally do an amazing job every day. And I just have to say that, you know, I think language is important. Talking about the Latin program at high school, it's super important. Languages are a way to learn about new worlds, new cultures, new people in, you know, in this 2024. And I think that, you know, the importance of language education, you know, all I can do as a language educator, I'm pretty biased, but I think we try and do a pretty good job and make as much of an impact as we can. So that's all I can say. And thank you to the board and everyone there for listening. But I just, you know, needed to show my face and say that I think UA is important, and it's really, really special what we have going on in this district. So to see it change would be quite sad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy Myers. Oh, Tammy Myers has been waiting.
Okay, Tammy.
Hi, thank you. I'm Tammy Myers. I grew up in this community. I have lived here for almost 50 years now, and I have 4 children that were raised in this community. One is a junior at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York, as a computer science major. She is thriving at RPI right now because of her STEM classes in elementary school all the way up through middle and high school. I have another daughter who's a freshman at Providence College in Rhode Island in the nursing program. Again, she is thriving there also, not because of her language arts and math courses, but because she is a well-rounded student who was given opportunities like STEM and art and music and band. I have 2 boys who are at the Prosper Valley School, and they cannot say enough about their unified arts classes. It's what makes them well-rounded children. I've been an educator, a special educator for 27 years. My husband is a teacher. My parents are teachers. The unified arts teach our children what we cannot teach them. We want well-rounded students. We want well-rounded community members. And I just want to second what Betsy said about learning styles, and students who have a hard time learning in the traditional classroom thrive in unified arts classes. But I have to say also, as a special educator of 27 years, I love having the opportunity to see students learn in a different environment, in a different light, in a different setting, and see them thrive in the same building, but having different supports and different environments that support them. I do not want to see our unified arts cut.
Thank you.
Madison?
Addison?
Hello, I'm Madison Blanchard. I am a student here at Woodstock, and I am also here to express my dissatisfaction with the removal of the Latin program in Magistra Allen's position. I was here earlier when a board member had said that the teachers were given a choice in their position in this school. And I would like to disagree with this statement. Between a buyout and buyout and being relocated to a different position, I do not believe this is a fair choice for our teachers. Is it really fair to ask for a teacher that has been teaching here for 13 years to leave their position and be put into a different one, or to leave the school? I know that mental health has been a very strong theme the last few years, and I can vouch for many people when I say that if Miss Magistra Allen was removed from her position, that mental health would definitely decline for a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the floor? Yes.
Jim Knapp from Killington. I was on the board with you folks for a while, and understand you've got a really tough thing here. So I've got two questions to ask. I wonder if all the administrators are taking a raise, first of all. And then my second question would be, I wonder what the penalty would be to keep the arts in language. So when you come back here on December 12th or whatever, we saw everything here, we listened to the folks, and we're probably going to hear like 10 more people going on and on and on. But I understand the cuts, but I would like to see if, let's say, the language and the arts stayed, what that would do to the tax rate pay. You know, because, you know, I'm looking at it and saying a $500,000 house in Killington, I'm paying about 16 grand. We're doing a reappraisal this year. If the numbers are right, the $1.87, I think you showed up there earlier, is the base rate before the CLA will be at 100%. My tax bill will go up about $1,800. You know, when I sat on the board, I always said, there's a dollar amount or whatever, $1,800 more, plus the 19 grand a year from the property taxes. I would be voting for that. So I would just like to see what the numbers are. That's it. And I hope you folks, as the board members, those are the questions you would be asking.
Thank you. Is there a name on the iPhone?
No, she is labeled as iPhone and she just disappeared.
Okay.
Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. She just dropped her hand. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Noelle Nunes. I am a mom at Woodstock Elementary, and I wanted to express some thoughts a little bit in honor of my mother-in-law, Harriet Worrell. She was a theater arts teacher there for many years, over 25. And when she passed away, at her funeral, the majority of the people that spoke about her impact were previous students who went on to be incredible contributors to society. And the impact that they spoke about was so inspiring to me. Like, how can I be more like Harriet Worrell? She was so passionate about all forms of art. I know she would be so disheartened right now to hear about the possibility of losing crucial arts programs without really evaluating other things as a whole. I also want to speak to the fact that I have raised a 23-year-old who started in junior high at Woodstock. We moved across the country. His mental health struggled intensely through the change. It was paraeducators, it was arts, it was sports that got my son through a very hard time in his life. We are foster family, so we have a foster child, and I know that I've seen our foster child blossom intensely, and I believe that certain curriculum that are demonstrated in the arts give confidence, and our foster child needed confidence. She is getting exceptional education in core curriculum. We are so appreciative and blessed by that. It is what happens in arts and music and Spanish. Our heart and soul is with Senora at the elementary school. And that is helping her thrive more than I could have imagined. It's the collective departments that are coming together, that those are crucial parts of what is needed for her education. I also have a son who is on the lower end of an educational spectrum, and it is occupational med. Yes.
Noelle, I'm really sorry, but your time limit is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name's Lizzie. I have 4 kids we live in Bridgewater, but we have 4 kids in the school district. And I have loved hearing from the students talking about their teacher. It's been really, really amazing. None of my kids are in high school, so we have not had that experience to know her. But my daughter has done Girls on the Run for a few years, and I just want to let it be known that Senora took on that lead last year to do Girls on the Run. And she is such a great inspiration to the girls. She, and you did too. Did you help out as well? Okay, sorry. So just Senora, but thank you, Senora, for going, beyond your role of just a teacher to spending time after school with the girls. It really means so much. And it's so amazing that we have teachers in this community that care so much about the students, that they are doing clubs with them after schools, and just willing to spend that time to be great role models for the kids in the community. Thank you.
In the back.
Hi, I'm Dexter Camp. I would like to say that cutting the Unified Arts Department is not going to be beneficial for students at all. As a near professional world hobby artist, I find that art is a time where I get to express my creative intelligence. And I feel like cutting the arts department, or part of it, is really gonna disable these kids' opportunities to build their creative intelligence, force them to stay in the classroom, read textbooks, be bored, and overwhelming them with all this work. And so cutting these arts departments is going to really diminish their creative intelligence, especially in a time where creative intelligence is much needed in our work.
Thank you.
Hi, Dave Rubin from Woodstock, 3 kids in the district. I also just wanted to voice my opposition to cutting the Unified Arts program. But I know a $2+ million budget deficit is a tough situation to be in. I think in the presentation, it was mentioned that there were some other proposals that were considered, and I'd just like to ask if those could be presented in some way in a future meeting, or if we could have more information about what some of the alternatives are to cutting the arts programs. Thank you.
Anybody else? Just going to I'll wait on you, Charlie.
Hi, my name is Charlie Kimball. I live in Woodstock. I'm the state representative-elect. I came to listen tonight. I want to applaud the board for trying to make some really hard decisions, and I like to hear the information coming from the people who are in the audience, because these are going to be very difficult and you have to make these decisions. So I'm not suggesting you follow one path or another. Thank you, Ben, for calculating the numbers already, so it gives some idea. But the legislature is going to be meeting. This is the #1 focus in terms of education financing for the legislative session this year, coming year, and the following year. So I got to say, this is not the end of the story. But so thank you for the work you've done, but we've certainly got some input now. Thank you.
Fred?
I spoke to you before as the president of the Woodstock Union High Schools QSA. I speak to you now as myself, as a person who lives here. I have a job. I pay taxes. I pay income taxes. I have to pay for the damages on my car. I have to fix repairs. I'm just a 17-year-old boy who's trying. And I try hard. I know a lot of people who struggle real bad. And I got to thinking throughout this, the idea of abrasive language. Who's abrading who? What is the definition of civility? And to tie it back to Latin, of course, all throughout history, the guise of civil and proper behavior has often been used as a tool to silence people. I, for one, believe in compassion above all else, even when it hurts me. I have failed tests because I've spent nights talking 8th graders out of killing themselves. Rough topic, sorry. But like, some of those kids talk to me now about how happy they are in the Latin program. Like, it's not us versus them. Y'all are community members too. Y'all are living your lives. Y'all are working hard. I've been on boards before. I was on the portrait of a graduate board. Like, I'm sorry I don't have anything fancy or better to say, but what are we doing? I walk these hallways every day. I hear the most vile, foul, abrasive language come from so many mouths. We have an exchange student who just today, I heard about them, like, people talking about them being deported as a joke. Like, what is the point of a budget cut? What are we trying to save here? What community are we trying to protect and defend and build? I understand there are legal requirements. I understand certain parts of the budget cannot be moved and cannot be shifted. It's a tough situation. That's life. I don't know.
15 seconds.
I don't have much to say, but every day, everyone works. Everyone works hard because we're all trying to do what's best. You got a lot of upset people here. I'm one of them.
Thank you. Marianne?
Hi, everybody. My name is Marianne, and I am a school counselor at the high school, and I'm also a mom of 2 little kids at West, and I just felt like I really needed to echo the support for our incredible UA teachers across our schools. I think people like Laura and Lauren absolutely make our little kids' days. They are these little young learners working so hard, and I think they truly just need those breaks in the day from other academics to, you know, explore and just foster other interests, and they're so important. And I think Ramsey mentioned this, the UA that they had that day is the very first thing that they tell us about when they get home. And these teachers are just an incredible part of our schools. And I think it just takes a lot for kids to just sit in class sometimes and work really hard on fluency and math and reading, and having access to UAs is just imperative from elementary to high school. And I just also want to share support for Sarah Allen. Just like our elementary kids love having their UAs, our high school kids love having you. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, good.
Hi, my name is Rachel Apple. I have a son in kindergarten at West. I also had the pleasure of teaching 3rd grade at West a few years ago. And I just want to echo Marianne and say that the kids, I thought we had a lot of fun in my class, but the way the kids ran off to their UA classes every day, they were always just so excited to go. And I think the current schedule as it is, of kids having that opportunity to go to one UA class every day is really important, and it really needs to be preserved at all costs. I also, as an educator, I do recognize how difficult it is to make these decisions about budget cuts. And in New York City, we faced incredible budget cuts. The school I worked at started with a huge music program where kids had access to private lessons, and over the years, I was at that school for 13 years, and it slowly got picked away by budget cuts, and now there's no music program. So I would hate for, this to be only the beginning of cuts to the program.
Thank you. All right, it looks like there's no more public comment, so I'm going to turn it back to the board to make it, make some comment.
No, not public. Is it back to the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you want to make it as a public comment.
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Board Representative Pomfret. First, I'd like to say that when my two boys went through this school years and years and years ago, I sat right here alone. Became known as the public. Some people will attest to that. I am thrilled with seeing so many people here speaking so passionately about something that they feel dearly about. So that said, I have two questions for the people in this room. Number one, if we as a board said, okay, we're not cutting UA. Instead, we're going to cut a similar amount of money in sports. No more football, no more skiing, whatever it is. We would have as many people here, 30 to 40 people here. What would you have us as a board tell those people who speak as passionately as you're speaking about unified arts about the importance of the sports programs? That would be question number one. Question number two is, and Jim hit on this closely, would the people in this room be willing to pay $2 for every dollar we keep spending on unified arts that was proposed to be cut? Those are my two questions. And that said, as a member representing Pomfret, I'm inclined to agree with not cutting unified arts. Thank you. That's it.
Anyone else? Matt?
So Matt Stout, Woodstock representative. I sent an alternate proposal to the Woodstock reps, and I shared it with Sherry and Jim. I just want to share it with the entire board. And it takes some background information. So I think that we already significantly reduced the minutes of UA this current year from last. And the going into the trimester proposal would significantly reduce it beyond the reductions we've already made. And I think that reducing Spanish in particular, a whopping 78% from what it's taught today in the school district is too much. It's pedagogically not sound. The learning loss of 9 months off from learning the language, I think, would probably wipe out any benefits of providing it. So the more that I've talked to teachers and parents and students, they're suggesting we not offer Spanish at all if we're going to make that kind of a change to the trimester proposal. I think that there are some unintended consequences that maybe some of the board members don't understand completely. With the change to the music teacher schedule, we'll be losing band for 4th grade, and we'll no longer have chorus at West. I think that there is another approach that we can take, and this is what I have forwarded, and I would like to see it considered. We could take PE out of the equation. Right now, we're proposing to give 45 minutes of what we call unified arts each day in the elementary school level, K through 6. But 2 of those days are PE. And I think that we could take PE out of that equation and offer PE per the federal law that we're required to offer, because we can't reduce that. and reduce it from the other core subject, literacy and math, which I do not think it will jeopardize the proficiency goals that we have. I know the proficiency in literature and math is critically important and that we've had some pretty dismal scores in the past. But I would like to see us move away from that trimester proposal, offer UA 45 minutes a day, each day, all year long. And that would be a combination of STEM, art, music, band, chorus, and Spanish. And I would like to see that priced out. And I've asked for that. And I know that it was, you know, in the midst of Thanksgiving, so it was challenging timing, but I would ask for it again. And I would like to consider whether we can evaluate cuts in other areas. In particular, most of the teachers who are classroom facing have mentioned the looking at positions that usually are described as coordinators, coaches, counselors, and generally staff, and they're not like facing classrooms in the homerooms. And so I think there's opportunity to make up for any increased costs that my proposal would bring. I'm happy to send it to all board members. I send it just to Woodstock. But I would like to at least consider the cost of that approach.
Thank you. Lauren? A question. So before public comment, Sam asked about the contract obligations that we can't touch. And then a lot of public comment involved the idea of administrators not getting a raise. Is that part of the contract obligations that we can't touch?
No. They're not members of the CBA. They are allowed for the contract on the board for 2 years. And that contract, their increases are in line with the faculty. And I think it's important to note that an administrator, even myself, makes less per day than a teacher does on the current grid. So if you look at our per day cost, I would make more as a teacher than I do as superintendent. And I think because of the number of days we work. Administrators currently, principals, directors are all making less per day than they would be if they were on the teachers. And that's why it's really hard to attract administrators because of the number of days they work. And if they were on the grid on 195 days, they would know job. So the contracts that are offered by the board to administrators were in line with the same increases of the
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, I don't think we can, as a board, discuss individual contracts in a public forum too much either, but I think that's about being significant, so.
Echo that maybe to the benefit of everyone here. Part of the challenge we've had as a board with transparency is that you can't be talking about people's jobs who are, you know, potentially going to be cut, maybe not, right? Those are all handled in executive session. So that's been one of the challenges we've had.
Josh.
So I just have a theory as I look at the fact that we're trying to cut 1.5 million, give or take. If we did a pay freeze like the state would do to their employees in this situation, which I know Charlie has seen before, they have done that to state employees. They've done a pay freeze. You don't get a pay raise for a year. And that's how they cut that cost. And right now we're getting, like, as a state employee, we get 4%, we're getting a 4% increase this year, but we're also getting a 60% increase to our health benefit cost. We're not putting any of that back into the budget from the teachers. So rather than cutting teachers, why don't we offer an alternative situation where we maybe do a pay freeze in order to keep their constituents, like the other teachers they work with, jobs? It just seems like a very simple question. Would teachers be willing to say, okay, we're not going to take a raise for a year in order to save somebody else on our team's job?
Not even sure if we can do that, but yeah, let's just put that.
So they're part of the teachers union statewide, so like you can't single out people from the union or on their contractual obligation that way. And I raised my hand, but, could I just, a student said something that I just want to clarify. When I was asking questions earlier about, the earlier time of the voluntarily, those were regarding teachers and physicians who opted to take a voluntary retirement for a cash buyout. That is not speaking to any positions that are being proposed to be cut. So I just think that that's an important clarification that I just wanted to make sure was noted. These were people that were offered, and it was actually not offered to specific teachers. It was offered to all teachers who had been in the district for 5 years or more, that they could if they wanted to. So I want to make sure that.
Yes, Heather Lawler, Barnard rep. The other Barnard rep could not be here this evening, and so I'd like to share some of her thinking as well. I want to thank everyone who acknowledged the fact that we are community members as well and volunteers. And personally, I also would hate to cut yards. But to follow up with what Bob said about if we then say athletics, another thing that was put out to me was cut pre-K for 3-year-olds. And because we're not required to do that by the state, but I guarantee the 3-year-old families would come out and force too. So somewhere the cut has to happen, cuts plural, I imagine. And I'm wondering if people would be agreeable to look at this in a way that maybe we can't keep everything, but maybe the cut doesn't need to be so targeted in one area. So would there be room to reduce athletics, reduce pre-K for 3, but not say most of the hit is going to unified arts, as it were? So just as a clear, so already we have directed each elementary school how many pre-K programs they've been offered, and the priority is going to 4-year-olds. So if we exceed the number that's currently budgeted for, we will only be able to accept 4-year-olds. That's our priority. So we're looking at that. I think you can see from the pie chart, we've tried to split, I feel a little frustrated for my math and science department who lost half a position, and no one's advocating for those 2 half positions in math and sciences. I feel the pre-Ks that we cut, there were a lot of other cuts beyond unified arts that were spread out. I feel for the supports, the central office, we lost 1/5 of their support, including Raina, who's picked up lots of other jobs because we're not filling that position. So the representation that UAA is the only thing hit is not, to me, an accurate representation, because I know what each of those principals gave up, and I know what each building has given up, and I know that classes are getting bigger. I know when we looked at class reductions and increasing sizes last year at Prosper Valley, we had just as many angry parents. So finding those cuts that are palatable and livable, and I remember last spring, the challenge we faced as a board when we were looking at increasing the class sizes and how upset Prosper Valley parents were. And I think there are no easy choices. There are no easy choices. I've been here for more than 30 years. I've seen how this process can go poorly. I've seen when superintendent said, they'll cut 10%, come back when you figure out that. And there was no connection and no community and no conversation. There's been a lot of dialogue with this board in the last 6 months. So this is not easy work. These are people that I care greatly about, that I've worked closely with for many years and value everything they do. My kids graduated from here. They were Harriet's charges for years, grew up in that department, and that was their most sacred place. But now we're in a position, this board is in a position to be responsible to our community. We have people who cannot afford to live here any longer. Our free and reduced lunch population has decreased because people can't live here. I have a fiscal responsibility to taxpayers to ensure that we have a budget that people is sustainable. And I think this board is taking that responsibility really strongly. I know last spring when the taxes were coming out and we were presenting other options. We have a, financial responsibility that we have to live to. I'm hoping that we would, by the cuts that were proposed, try to spread those impacts. There are losers. We are losing. We are losing $2.5 million from our budget. There is no easy way to do that. And I feel this. I know what my kids experienced here. I know what the quality of the teachers and they are significantly better than any in the state. And I know that. But this is hard. And there will be reductions.
I think it might be useful as well if the many letters that we've received or will probably continue to receive are also talking to our legislators and the governor, because this is coming from the government. It's not coming from us. We had no intention of having to cut $2.5 million. It's been extremely painful for all of us. I'm a language teacher by background. When I see languages, it's low hanging fruit, right? Because it's not mandated by the state. So things like that come down to tough decisions. Where do you start? Where do you cut? We have a lot of support personnel in our buildings now because we need them, because the kids need them. They're not the same kids that grew up with my children's kids, my children who are now in their 40s. And so it's a different scenario. It's a big world here. It's worldwide. I read about a lot of education things all the time. But, we only have control over our budget. We don't have control over how it's allocated, how it's spread out into the ed fund. We have very little control over that. So my recommendation is start writing letters that go to the people who can make the difference, who can reach student funds.
Why are we serving in the audience here? Thank you for
Yes, we do. That.
I left one thing out. So when I talk about the unintended consequences of the trimester program, it's going to lead to a loss of band and chorus at West. But the other ones I think we really have to grapple with is that no one is going to want the jobs that teach at 5 different campuses and only teach for a third of a school year at each. And we will lose the Spanish teacher, Senora. We will probably lose the art teacher. We will probably lose the STEM teacher. So what are we going to actually have if we implement the trimester and we don't have teachers in place to teach it and we can't hire them? Because how are we going to attract those teachers for those roles? So I again want to encourage the board to ask the finance committee and our finance director to look at a different option different from the trimesters.
Well, we have a lot of agenda yet to get through, so I think we'll end this discussion and we'll move on to the reports.
Carrie, Anna, would like to speak?
Who is that?
Anna?
Oh, Anna? Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, all. If I could just jump off of Matt's comments. My understanding when we reviewed this repeatedly previously was that actually the UA teachers would be doing less travel between campuses. Can that be clarified?
Right, they would be between 2 schools at the most per trimester. Is the way that the trimesters would work. They would either be at West for 1 trimester for the full trimester, or on the other 2 trimesters, 1 of 2 elementary campuses.
Right, so there would be less schools within their time frame that they would be traveling between. They would be between 2 schools as opposed to 3 or 4.
Correct, and that currently all our UAs at the elementary level, other than those teaching at West, are working between more than 1 school.
I think I got that. There's a lot of background noise, but I appreciate the answer.
Thank you,
Barry, I'm going to propose a motion that the Finance Committee and Administration look at an alternative to the trimester system and consider the 45 minutes each day in the K through 6 schedule excluding PE from that 45 minutes. That is my motion on the table.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Ben?
Yeah, we've looked at alternatives. The principals proposed 3 different options when they came to the finance committee. Carrie and I originally went into the finance committee. If there are other alternatives that you'd like to see considered, I would ask you to review those and make a proposal in some more detail.
Can we get a vote?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if anybody else wants to comment on that.
Can I just double check. I don't think you said it's double stuck. Double stuck, it's fine. Okay.
Okay, I'll resend it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of voting yes, and I'm gonna have to ask the Zoom people to unmute, please, and use your voice.
I have a question for discussion before we take a vote.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that the vote on the table is whether or not to request the Admin, Finance, and Finance Committee to review other alternatives to where we can make budget cuts. And then there was a request back to Matt to provide those suggestions. So I'm sort of unclear on what we're voting on, what the motion is. Is Matt going to be presenting ideas or other alternatives to the finance group in addition to administration, or are we just requesting alternatives be explored?
Yeah, and I certainly don't want it to be circular where I ask someone else to analyze it, then they ask me to analyze it. I'm being very, very clear. I want to see what it would cost, how much more it would add to our budget to offer K through 6 UA 45 minutes a day, with excluding PE, that should have its own time. And obviously that number is probably going to be higher than the current trimester proposal, but at least we'll have a number. And then maybe we could look at other areas to make up for that number. We could look at other positions, other areas that are driving cost.
So at this point, the motion on the table is just to get the numbers of what it would be to offer K through 6 UA.
I believe that's what I understand. It's to get the numbers to offer what you're suggesting.
Yes.
Received. Thank you.
Is the board ready to vote? About?
Closely related to that request would be a more detailed line item number for each and every one of the other costs, similar to what Jim suggested. I mean, if we're doing, I know we have all the numbers. So if we do it for K to 6 UA, it'd be useful to have the other numbers there too, so that we can see relatively how big a deal that is.
Regarding the unified arts events.
Yeah.
Okay. Adam wants to speak. Adam?
Yeah, I guess I just point of clarification for the finance committee of these requests. Are these reasonable requests given the time frame?
Maybe your volunteers like you, right? I mean, if the finance committee is supposed to do research and come up with alternatives beyond those that the professionals and administrators in our district have offered the committee for consideration, then the answer is, yeah, it's unreasonable given any time frame.
I think I would just say that that's kind of what motivates my question, right? Is that certainly board members, particularly on the finance committee, amongst other committees, that go above and beyond in terms of time commitment and expertise that's not their own in terms of informing and supporting the administration. I hear the concern of wanting to hear alternatives, but I'm just wondering about kind of human resource wise, what's really feasible at this point, and at what cost benefit analysis, right? So at what cost is it going to take to realize that it's not an easy ask, I guess is what I'm getting at.
And Adam, I totally acknowledge that, recognize that, and I'm trying to preempt a scenario where it's voted down on December 16th, and now we have even less time, and we're coming up against holidays and vacations. So I'm asking us to do some more work heavy lifting now rather than pushing it off.
Don't we already have these numbers? Isn't it a matter of just publishing them in more detail? And I apologize for missing the last special meeting, but maybe they've already been published.
Publish a budget every year.
No, but are we really asking for anything new here? Are we?
Well, yes. Well, asking for, adding back in UA subjects that we're going to be cut. So that it's no longer a trimester program, correct?
Correct.
And this is exactly what that was.
Yeah, I think the difference is that tonight we can actually look at it in terms of tax impact. These are the best numbers that we got, start having those conversations. That's something that we weren't able to get until 3 o'clock today, right? So we can certainly, it's a great suggestion from the floor, and we can certainly incorporate it so we can understand like what the magnitude of the tax impact.
Yeah.
Happy to do that.
I think would that be without asking
Yeah,
you to come up with a different solution, obviously, but just exactly what those numbers are.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Is that something different from what I'm asking? I just want to make sure it's not getting turned in a different direction.
I feel like you said something about there was other places that could be cut to cover those costs.
So obviously we'll have to look for those, but I'm trying to keep it simple and just saying, if we didn't do the trimesters, but instead had allocated 45 minutes a day to UA all year long, split across Spanish, STEM, art, music, chorus, band, what would that look like cost-wise? And I know that those human resources would have to be replicated in our different elementary schools, and so I know it will add costs, but I would like to just see what those costs would be.
Costs are easy. The alternative costs are hard.
Are we ready to vote? Okay, can we repeat what we're voting on, just so that it's very clear?
We're just looking for numbers, that's all you're asking.
45 minutes the cost.
So it's returning all the positions that were listed. Is that what you're asking for, the cost of those positions that were cut? What is the realized benefit of those cuts? Is that what you're, because 45 minutes a day is what we're doing now. We have not cut UA at all. I know you said that, but there has been no time cuts. There are positions that were closed because no one applied at 0.6 finished. But this year there were no cuts to UA. It's the same schedule we had. So are you asking for the number that is realized by cutting the positions? Because you're just saying stay with the model you have now. How much is that going to cost?
No, I'm saying not sticking with trimesters. It's not
The model we have now is not trimesters. Right. So returning those positions back.
45 minutes a day of UA excluding PE without implementing a trimester system, which creates further reductions in UA minutes.
Which means that we go back to the current model, because so there's not 45 minutes, it's spread out every day is a little. So are you asking us what is the savings by cutting those UA positions?
200,000, right? We discussed that last meeting. By doing the cuts to the UA, I believe it was going about 200,000 savings. Which I would think with the public's outcry and steaming the board, we should be able to somewhere, regardless how difficult it is, find alternatives for $200,000 if that's, I mean, out of all the numbers I've heard, that's one of the smallest numbers, yet the biggest support for it. I don't want to steal from what Matt's saying or doing, but I would ask, what is the effects on the students by cutting UA? Because I haven't heard that. I've heard a lot of benefits, which I personally agree with. Is there any studies or anything saying that it's going to be detrimental to the kids?
Well, that number can't be right because there's at least 3 at elementary, and with benefits, we've got a budget 100,000 per person. Benefits alone could be 40 grand. Right, so that's 300. And then there's one at the high school, it's at least maybe 1.5. So you're getting up to about 500,000.
I would agree. I was just quoting Jim last meeting for 200,000 that we would save on the UA.
So are we asking them to bring us a proposal, right?
I'm trying to clarify. Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy, that's some numbers. Do you want to
I've got the cost overlaying to the cut.
Is that what you're looking for?
I'm looking to get us back to 45 minutes each day for UA.
What that would cost.
And what that would cost. We're offering Spanish 2 times a week, K through 3 for 30 minutes. We're offering it 3 times a week for 45 minutes in grade 4, 5, and 6. We're now offering it twice a week. We're proposing to offer it twice a week for a trimester. That's a 78% reduction in Spanish from what we're doing this year. We're going to offer art twice a week for the trimester, as opposed to 1 day a week for 45 minutes throughout the whole year. That's a 33% reduction, the same reduction for STEM. So I'm asking whether or not we can see what it would cost to keep UA 45 minutes a day at each campus.
Which is more than we're doing now.
Not some of them.
It would be, if it excludes PE, it would be more.
So we need more, so it's more than what we cut. So we have to go back and look at schedules in order to do 45. I mean, this is a lot, it is time and all. We are going to a conference next week, so no principals are available next week. So we need today to Friday to get you those numbers. And because I'm not.
Well, I did ask for last week, and that was.
I can't respond to that. It has to go through the finance. And so does Jim.
Well, I'm going to suggest that Ben and Matt touch base to get the clarification on exactly what you're proposing, because it sounds like it's different from the current Unified Arts.
I put a motion out, it got seconded, and then no vote was taken. I thought it was pretty clear to price out the increased cost from the current proposal of a trimester system to what would be the increased cost of offer 45 minutes of UA a day at each campus K through 6. That motion got seconded, and I'd like to have a vote. There are 18 board members.
All right.
Otherwise, I know where that's going.
All right, no, we can have a vote. I just don't think we're all clear exactly on this. So folks on the board, would you please unmute so we can hear your voice? Okay, all those in favor of supporting the motion by Matt, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any who abstain?
I'm going to abstain because I'm still not clear what we're voting on.
Okay, are there any no's?
No.
So. Yes.
You have to do a roll call.
Okay. All right, Brady, can you read the board members off up there, because I just can't see them all.
Sure. Adam,
No.
Anna,
I abstain.
and Carl,
Yes.
Peter?
do, do, do. Ray Rice,
Ray?
Do I vote in this stuff? I have a vote in this?
yes.
Yeah, yes, I'll put yes. Thank you.
I think that's everybody.
Thanks. Ryan?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Yes, just clarifying that we're voting yes to get the numbers.
Right, yes.
Yes, yes.
Elliot?
Yes.
Lara? Aye. Aye.
Yes. Aye.
No, oh, sorry. Sam, aye. Aye.
Aye.
You guys have it.
All right, that's all.
Okay. We'll move into the reports from superintendent, and we have the direct reports already in our packets and Owen has made one the report.
Yeah, her time is right, reports in there.
Thank you. Thank you. Owen, did you want to say anything?
In your reports in the packet.
Okay. Thank you.
Owen, thank you.
Well said. All right, Mont Public High School choice. Next topic. You have to set an incoming limit instead of outgoing limit if you wish. You need a motion? Yes. I make a motion that we accept the proposed limits as published in the packet on page 9. With the current limit incoming at 10 and the current limit outgoing. Current limit is none. Okay, I propose we accept, move forward with no change.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Josh?
So when you say the current, that's what the outgoing is now?
That's what it says.
So that means we don't allow anybody to go outgoing?
No, we don't have a limit of how many.
We don't, so there's no limit, it's unlimited.
Right.
Okay, I just think the wording should be.
Yeah.
Words to unlimited versus not.
Okay,
That's the only thing I'm gonna suggest.
Bob?
On the incoming limit, have there been any people, any students been rejected? Or have there only been 10 who asked?
I can answer that. Historically, we have not rejected anybody. This coming year, because we will only have one vacancy, we will have to hold a lottery. We've already had more applicants than vacancies.
Would the motion maker agree to an amendment to the motion?
I think it's important to know that you don't get ADM, just get the student.
Understood.
Okay. How would you like to amend?
How many additional do you think we'd have in the lottery, Raina?
Currently, we have 3 applicants for 1 spot.
I'd move it to 15. I've never felt that it made any sense at all to restrict families who want to send their students to this school, understanding the costs. It's what we have to offer. It's the reason they're sending their students here. So I, for one, would move to amend the motion to increase it to 15.
Any discussion on that? Josh?
What do you mean we won't get, you're still gonna get the cost for that student for coming into the district?
No,
There's no money comes with it. But you don't lose money on the ones that go elsewhere either.
So it's not like a 1-for-1. Okay,
No, so right now we've got 5 who have left.
yeah,
But we have 10 now, so we have 5 students that we're basically paying for out of pocket. So then you're opening up to another 5.
So who do we get money from when we attract? The towns that have choice, they have to pay tuition. I thought this was school choice. No, it's a Vermont program to allow students to make different choices than if they come from a town that designates. They,
So like a Killington,
Hartford, for example.
yeah, or a Killington kid might want to go to Rutland.
Right to the tech center in Rutland instead of the tech center at Hartford, for example, sometimes that happens. Okay, so I'd like to amend my motion to propose that we increase the current limit of students incoming to 15 and make no other changes and move forward with the numbers as they were last year. We ready to vote?
Ben has to agree with the amendment since he was the second.
Thank you.
so just say, can we change the words from none to unlimited? That was the only thing I just said before. The word none should be unlimited. This is a bad wording. If you say none, it sounds like 0.
It's just in the packet, Josh. It's not like part of the.
I'm just saying, when you say none, it sounds like 0.
All right. Vote, please take your Zoom's off. I mean, your mute's.
I have a question for discussion. I'm not sure that anyone on the board can answer, although I'm open to it. Given the passion that we've seen tonight about budget restrictions and increased class size, how our public taxpayers are going to receive it if we're welcoming additional outside students, be it an effect on the class size or whatnot, given the cuts we're making, bringing in additional students that are not bringing in additional dollars.
I would.
I would like to comment on that. I hope it's more about the education we can provide for any student interested in coming, regardless of the dollar amounts received or going out in either way. I think the education should be the utmost important. And if there are students out there that want to come in here, we should allow that.
And I'd also mention that our population is declining in the high school level. I think it's in Raph's information, so I don't think we're going to be increasing the student to teacher ratio such that we have to hire more staff.
I also think it might be valuable from a marketing point of view. We can say, hey, these people want to come here because we're amazing. Don't you want to come here because we're amazing too?
I mean, if you look at the numbers, that's more than double of what the kids who are not, or choosing to not go to school, that want to come to this school. There's only 5 kids who are wanting to go to a different school, while there are between 10 and 15.
Are we ready to vote? All right, all those in favor of the amended motion to 15 for the current limit and keeping as is the outgoing limit, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that has passed. Thank you. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. Yeah. The opportunity to discuss the calendar for 2026.
So let me just give a little background on this proposed calendar. So the Southeast superintendents have been meeting. We meet twice a month. We've been working to establish a calendar that is based on the same framework. So looking at the same start date, same winter break, same February and April break. We have faculty and staff that live in other school districts. It's incredibly difficult when your children, so I loved it when my husband was on a different week, but I'm not that, it's all about me. So, but it really does help families to be on the same. This also incorporates 3 different tech centers. So really making sure, so Brattleboro, Springfield, and Hartford. This Friday, I'm going to bring this calendar to the trustees and the hope that we could have a statewide calendar. Again, having the same start dates, winter break, February and April break. Everyone has a different contract. Everybody has a different number of in-service days. But if we could have these 4 pieces the same, would be really helpful in the, the running of schools and supporting faculty and staff. So that's why the dates are such. I know there's some questions about the late week on February. Some districts offer the first Monday and the first Tuesday of March. So districts would like to have that all contiguous, so it's all, so it wasn't spread between 2 weeks. The other challenge we face is that the testing window that the state gives us opens in March or end of March and closes in April. So we want to get our state testing done before April break. So this would allow that to happen. So principals have had input. We are still working on in-service days a little bit. Again, making sure that we consider when we have parent-teacher conferences and in-service days. So, but the primary weeks of when do we do winter break, when do we do February, April, and when is our start date? How do we really the same across this, at least this region, and Southeast includes north of Hanover all the way to Vassar and this side of the region.
But it's not aligned with the north. Or you make.
We're working on it. I'm proposing it to trustees. I'm hoping that we can do that because Heather, right on the cusp. It's really challenging.
It is.
Yeah. And not just for me, like, yes, many families would love to see the whole state have that. So thank you for that work.
Because usually we had the third week of February.
Correct.
But in the north had the fourth week.
Correct.
So in that aligns with what they still continue. Right. And that it's not.
Correct. It also gives us, you know, the tricky part is, so winter break is a difficult one because of the Christian holiday. It's right in the middle. Some districts are considering having that Monday and Tuesday. I think we only have 175 days on our calendar, which is a very short amount. So to me, those 2 days are kind of a loss, and I hate losing instructional days. So we are proposing this year it's 2 weeks. We would also have 2 weeks next week. The following year, we would shift that, so we would have school that week probably. Yeah, that's where there's going to be some conversations in districts, but then if we can get those core pieces aligned, it would be really good. So are you looking for this to be approved as a draft? So you can take it back for further? No, I would love this to be confirmed, and then we are aligned with all the Southeast school districts. And then I'm also bringing this to the state to see if they can move in this direction. Some school districts have already begun to do their calendars, but if we can start having that conversation in a broader way, it would be good. But I ask that we can accept this one.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote?
I have another question. So isn't the President's Day the 16th, it's a federal holiday, it's a state holiday, so the state government takes it off. Can a local district still have school?
Yes.
Okay, and my
We have it in the past.
other question is, we approve it now, but it's not successful in terms of making it consistent with the rest of the state. Would we stick with this and be on a schedule different from like our neighboring towns, Hartford, Windsor? Like,
Yeah, if we don't accept this, then we would be off from Hartford, Windsor, Springfield. This aligns us with Hartford, Springfield, Hanover.
So they're moving.
They will have this calendar.
So other districts have moved to the fourth week of February
Yes.
for winter recess.
Yes.
In order to match the north.
No, and we will, some parts of the north do it this way, other parts, it's random all across the state. What we've worked towards is that the southeast, including Hanover, Hartford, Springfield, Windsor, all those districts will be the same, Two Rivers will be the same. We would love to see this move over beyond, but for now, and we did that, this current calendar we're on is the same as the entire Southeast region. This is the second year we've been able to align, same start dates, all of that. It's hard to, so, you know, for example, if we have students who are members of the Hartford Tech Center, they've had a week earlier start dates. That's really hard for our students because they have to start their school year sooner and then sooner. So trying to align with the tech centers as well is really helpful and good for our students.
I mean, as a parent of somebody, as a student who goes to Hartford Tech, the days that they don't align are hard and frustrating, so.
All right, all in favor of approving this calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? One abstention. All right, thank you. The next thing that we have are some teachers who have resigned, and there will be more, but we won't have one tonight. So we have, I'll just read the names, and I'm going to invite a principal who would like to say something about these teachers. Please speak up. Nancy Stockwell from West, Ann Ballenhorst from West, Masha Govan from Reading, Prosper Valley, and West, Betsy Freitas from West, Marie Anderson from the middle school, high school, and Lisa Laird, who is a Killington elementary teacher. So, and then I'll introduce that. Yes. So Maggie, would you like to speak about the teachers from your building?
I'd love to. Hi, everyone. It's Maggie Mills. I'm principal over at Woodstock Elementary, and I've got 4 teachers to celebrate with some regret tonight. Nancy Stockwell will be retiring from Wes after over 20 years of her career, mostly as a kindergarten teacher. She also worked as an academic support person prior to becoming a kindergarten teacher. Many people in our community know Nancy as the person responsible for welcoming children and families into Wes and starting their elementary careers. She's become a mentor and really trusted support to a lot of families as they learn about their child's early development. I wanted to say that Nancy worries about other people's children like they're her own. She's an advocate for kids, and she is known for putting in a lot of extra time planning individualized instruction and small group work for meeting all of her kindergarten students where they're at to ensure they make the maximum growth possible in kindergarten. Nancy's just really been a core member of our primary team, and she's leaving a really big set of shoes to fill when she leaves us at the end of this year. I don't know if I wanted to give an opportunity for anyone else to say something about Nancy, but I've got 3 others to go.
Yeah, I'd just like to read a very short letter that my son Cyrus wrote to Mrs. Stockwell when he ended his kindergarten time with her. He said, "Dear Mrs. Stockwell, well, I have mixed up feelings about first grade, but I had a great year with making crowns, having a field day, making caterpillar pictures, really fun. I can't believe, but I know I have to. But this was the best year of my life. Mrs. Stockwell from Cyrus."
I'd like to say that Nancy is one of my best friends. I've known her since before I moved here through her mom. And she's done an amazing job under high circumstances raising her children alone. And she will be greatly missed.
Like to add, just Nancy was my son's kindergarten teacher, as well as I believe my younger sister's Anna's kindergarten teacher. She was a smile in that building that you was just expected. I mean, not having that building, I'm excited for her in her next chapter, and I thank her so much for the many years of service she did.
Thank you. Do you want to keep going, Maggie?
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. So Ann Vanhorst is our reading interventionist that's retiring at the end of this year, but she taught many grades at West before becoming a reading interventionist. Most recently, she taught 1st and 2nd grade, but she's really honed her skills in reading intervention over the past 10 years that I've known her. She's a really essential part of our reading intervention program, and she has dedicated countless hours to teaching beginning readers their letters, their sounds, their vowel teams, and working on fluent reading and comprehension. And many times over the past several years, Anne has come to my office with student data sheets in her hand, ready to brag about and celebrate the growth that students are making in her group. And she really takes pride in her students and celebrates with them their accomplishments as readers. I wanted to say that in addition to being just such a champion for children's literacy development, Anne is the first warm and friendly face that people see when they come to West in the morning. She greets staff, students, families with a smile, a hug, a high five at the front door of West every day. And I know that her impact at West is going to be remembered for a really long time after she leaves us this year.
Thank you. And actually, yes.
She absolutely despises every time I tell this story, because I was in Ann Vanhorst's first class here at Woodstock. So she was my 4th grade teacher, and I was in her very first class when she first came to Woodstock. And I remember her. She was my 4th, 5th, I think also portion of 6th grade teacher. It ages both of us every time I tell that story, so she doesn't like it. But she had a very big impact on me in a very challenging 3 adolescent time. She was a teacher that is definitely a core memory for me, and I'm so glad that she was lived in this community for as long as she was, and so happy for her next chapter, and very, very thankful for the time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, my next one is Marcia Govin. And Marcia came to West 10 years ago. She founded our STEM program. It was the first elementary STEM lab in the state of Vermont, and she really developed what the program was going to be. She built it from the ground up, designed it. She collaborated with teachers on creating really rich science units that were taught both in the classroom and in the STEM lab. She started several very cool initiatives in our school, including we used to have a Everybody Engineering Week where the whole school participated in engineering challenges. She founded a hand printing program, which was a recycling and composting program where the students were weighing our trash, recycling, and compost, and she won an award from Sustainable Woodstock for that. She started a tinkering club, a coding club, a woodworking club, a 3D printing club. As Finn Costello spoke about earlier, Marcia's STEM program quickly became a fan favorite among our students, and it continues to be what many students look forward to each week. And I wanted to say that in addition to being just a fantastic STEM teacher, Marcia is such a loyal and supportive colleague to her Unified Arts teammates, and I know that all the staff and students will miss her contributions to our school.
Thank you. Brandon, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I did. Just trying to get my video started. Can't see if you can see me because I can't see me.
We can see you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and nice little background of the Christmas tree. I've only known Marcia for a few months because this is her first year at Reading since I've been there. But I will say she's made a profound impact with staff and students. She's only there once a week, but she puts her all into everything she does, and I can't wait to spend the rest of the year with her. It's been fun.
Thank you. Okay, again, it's over to you, Maggie.
Okay, so Betsy Freitas is a veteran of over 20 years of teaching at West, primarily in the first and second grade classrooms. I first got to know Betsy my first year at West. We were paired together to lead a marble run club during our winter workshops, and I was just so struck by how welcoming she was to me and to all the different students that were in the marble club. She was both friendly, joyful, and yet very calm and clear. And I think she just has this wonderful balance of being inviting and welcoming and supportive, but also very clear, and you know what to expect from Betsy. And she's very creative. The marble run lessons that she came up with were fantastic. But on top of that, she's been really central to our school culture over the past 20 years. She's been featured in many assemblies, skits, and show your stuff acts. And she's really, I've observed her to be quite a lifelong learner as a classroom teacher. She's continued to be really driven to hone her skills in literacy instruction and math instruction. Any of the new curriculums or programs that we've adopted, she's embraced them wholeheartedly and put her all into just doing the very best she can for the students. And you heard her speak earlier. I think you could tell from her sharing about the struggles with the budget cuts that she just cares so deeply about putting students at the center of her work. And I know that she's going to be a member of our West community even when she retires after this year.
Thank you. Mary, did you want to speak about, oh, sorry, Aaron, would you like to speak about Marie Anderson?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to have Jen Settle speak to Marie Anderson. She's had quite a few years working with her. I've only had a few months. It's been a pleasure, but we'll have Jen Settle speak to that. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. Jen Settle, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. We've been so very lucky to have Marie Anderson as a French teacher at the high school and middle school. However, when she moves on to new adventures, we will lose much more than a gifted French teacher. We will lose an approachable and creative department chair, a student-focused high school student council advisor, a skilled excursion planner, an exquisite French club crepe maker, and a lover of all things French blue. Woodstock students have benefited from her French connections and learned to love language and culture while traveling with her in France. Our cultural exchange program requires so many hours of planning and logistics and communication abroad. And Marie's dedication to making sure that students have an incredible experience while abroad has been amazing for so many of our students. We're so thankful for her work there. Marie, your personality, your positivity, your persistent smile, your enthusiasm for language, your care for your colleagues, and your dedication to students at Woodstock will be really missed. Thank you for your years of service.
I'd like to say also that I did work with Marie for many years here at the school, and she was a great team player, and we had an extremely harmonious department of language teachers. All right, Mary.
Yeah, hello, good evening. Lisa Laird has been at Killington for 30 years. Sherry delivered the golden apple to her this fall. So, and she has spent nearly all of those 30 years in education at Killington. She was primarily a first grade teacher for about a second grade teacher for at least 26 years. When I did a long-term sub at Killington about 22 years ago in first grade, she was a second grade teacher, and she made me feel welcome when I was there. She still does. All the new faculty who come into our building, faculty and staff, she does embrace them. But I remember her passion for teaching primary students reading and writing. She would pull me into her classroom and say, look what my second grade students did today. Like they were talking about how it feels to be a lobster on the ocean floor, and just was so passionate about the students and their creativity in writing. She definitely cares and has a lot of concern for all of her students and her colleagues. One thing that I will always remember about Lisa, she will take every opportunity to bring her students outside onto our nature trail and find a place for them to sit and connect with nature, read a book, draw, sketch, explore nature in its natural beauty. And she really fostered in her students a love for their environment and care for the earth. That is something that Lisa will leave as her legacy at Killington. She also served as a LSB rep for the district for many years. I'm not sure how many years, but I know she took a break from it one year and couldn't be without it and had to come back. So she helped many, many teachers with their licensing each year. She will definitely be missed at Killington in all of those capacities.
Thank you. And we also have one staff retirement. Who doesn't need to be accepted by us, but I'm going to invite Joe Rigoli to speak about Drew.
So Drew has been part of this district for, gosh, I don't even know, 20 plus years. He's been a key player on buildings and grounds. I really can't say enough about Drew through the years. He's always been diligent. Always tried his best working with his teammates, and he's going to be missed, no doubt about it. He's been a fixture in that school again for 20 plus years. He's one of the longest facilities guys in a district. He's certainly going to be shoes to fill.
Thank you, Joe. So we have to accept the resignations of the 6 teachers. Is there a motion to accept the resignations for the regret?
So moved.
Second. Right. All in favor of accepting with regret the resignations of the 6 teachers, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we accept the resignations. We've done the budget. So we're going to move right into the committee updates. Does the Hines committee have any further updates?
We've taken it up around the room, so. Demand, but it's all in preparation.
Okay. Policy committee, Elliot.
Yes, so we have a couple policies to talk about. The first one is the student activities, clubs, and athletic policy. I'd like to do a couple of comments on it before we vote on it. This has been about 2 years that we've been working on this, and I want to thank everybody on the committee who's been on the committee before and all the people that have reviewed it as well. And just the goals of the policy are, there are several VSBA policies. This is sort of combining. We actually wanted to simplify this. In general, this provides guidelines and guardrails for sustainability, creation, and cutting of co-curriculum with the emphasis on sports. For example, there's guidelines for how you move to and from clubs, for sponsored sports. We tried to be sensitive to the budget resources. It's sort of built into the policy as well, just in terms of all that's involved in that. We certainly want to be sensitive to equitable in providing equity and in compliance both with federal laws, Vermont laws, and our own policies. And just want to also mention that built into the policy is also that it's to be self-monitoring in terms of effectiveness of programs, everything, and also part of the policy is that it's to be monitored and reported back to the school board. So my ask is to have a motion to move this to next meeting as a second reading, so the January board meeting, but it's certainly open to questions. I just want to say one other thing, that as you read it, it does go in, there's a lot of particulars into how it's almost like a procedure, but basically we wanted to put that within the policy to provide the guidelines up front.
Like Elliot mentioned, this has been a policy 2 years in the making. This, as we talked about in our meeting, this is truly, I know we're all tired and it's a long meeting, so I'm also open to this being a first reading and then, you know, us having a second or third or fourth reading. I think on the committee, we were really hoping to get some more full board feedback on this policy. And I know that because we are all tired, I definitely think it needs a lot of conversation. And I just hope that maybe not necessarily tonight, but people take the time and we really do have a in-depth conversation regarding this policy, because there is a lot to it, and it is not one specifically written by the state, so there is some things in it that I think are up for potential edits and changes. That's just my sense.
Yeah, I agree. I've started attending policy meetings, and this one is got a lot in it, and the board should really read it, take the time to read it. And if you have questions, email them to any of the members of the committee. But there's things in there that probably aren't in most schools' policies. So please take the time for that.
And we should discuss whether we really even want that in there.
Right. All right. Elliot's made the motion. Did I second it? Thank you. And we'll just to move it to a second reading. What we're doing. So all in favor of moving this to a second reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. And then you have three for
I have 3 for adoption. These are ones we've discussed before. I'm going to present them basically as a group of three. They're all about developing curriculum and also selecting and deselecting material for instructions in books, and it provides guidelines for doing all that. We've talked about them before as together, so I'd like to present them for adoption together. Unless there's questions on any of them.
All right, Elliot's made a motion. Will somebody second it?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of moving all three policies for adoption, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The abstentions. Thank you. Buildings and ground update.
Yep, I'll be quick. We're out in an RFP for construction work to reinforce the beams in the gym. That would bring us up to code for the snow loading or the weight loading on the roof. The committee agreed with all of Joel's recommendations to meet the fiscal year 26 budget by buying some things this year that we can use next year. So pulling them into this budget, we're deferring some stuff out of next year's budget. And finally, the board or the committees supported Joel's recommendation to pursue dispute resolution with JCI. JCI has not completed the project. They're not responding to any further requests to do any more work as it relates to the software control of the heating system in all of our campuses. So we will be pursuing another resolution. That's it.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Matt. Negotiations, hiring, staffing committee.
Yeah, so we've met with the support staff negotiating team. So that conversation has begun, and they've presented their first round of proposals, and we'll be responding to those next week. So that moves forward if anyone is interested in joining our small
We
team.
really need one more person. All right, are there any working groups? No. Okay, the next thing we have to do is to approve the 2 sets of minutes that would take at the same time for November 18th, special meeting in November 4th. Is there a motion to accept the minutes, approve the minutes, both sets? Thank you. This is really important step now. We're down to the important step.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. We do have time for public comment. If there's anyone else here who would still like to speak, floor is open.
Ben, like you had mentioned earlier, that you just got this report at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I really do think we folks, and I mean, I know a lot of you probably think I'm against the school because I was against the new building last year or whatever, but I was truly against the building that we were going to build. And I think that we should have gone after, and I said it 7 years ago, for a hub here and hit the state. But when you start looking at the sheet that the state gave us, so Killington is at doing a reappraisal. It's at 100. It should be at 100%. The only one I can find on this sheet right here is Fairfield right now. That's at 100% and equal. So the state CLA would be 139%. So I just want to make sure, Ben, when you did the $1.87, you would not subtract, you were not adding the CLA into it, if that's correct.
But you can call them. I'll walk you through what I did.
I think the rest of the board might want to, if it's $1.87 prior to the CLA, or if it's after the CLA. It's a big deal because if it's $1.87 before the CLA.
All right. This is public comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we do have a need for an executive session, so somebody make a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
What purpose?
It's contractual, I'm sorry. It's for contractual.
Thank you.
Thank you. See, I told you. All right, we've exited executive session and we are going to, I'm going to make, oh no, somebody's going, Ben's going to make a motion.
I'll move that we accept the resignation buyout discussed during executive session.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, our last act is reflection.
No, I think Brian already did it. I love y'all, but let's go home.
Well done. Thank you.
Travel safely, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Goobers.